Andrew, are you happy for us just to crack on? Obviously, I started recording straight away. Are you okay for us just to crack on straight away, get to know each other properly through the podcast?
Absolutely, go for it.
Lovely job. Like I said to you before, when we had the first chat about this, I don't do sales pitches or anything like that. It's just us having a chat. It's a chance for us to get to know each other. It's also a chance for the public, people that are watching and listening, so them to get to know you, the person behind the brand, and what your brand is, what the product actually is.
Absolutely.
Right, lovely. In that case, folks, welcome back to Brew Time. It's been a bit sporadic over the last few months. I do apologise. It's just been crazy busy with the tours and everything just now. But that's coming to an end soon, probably from about mid to end September onwards. I'm going to have much more time basically at home, and we'll get back to a regular one a week podcast and at least one a week for the vids. There's loads of content coming your way soon. So this week I've got Andrew Richardson from RealRider.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very, a little bit stressed, but technology. I love technology and I hate technology in equal measures, to be fair.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. Yeah, when it works, it's fantastic, isn't it? But when it doesn't,
absolutely. Yeah.
So,
I know
no, go on, crack on.
No, I'm saying we're having to rely on it even more nowadays, and that's the challenge, the many challenges. But there you go.
Certainly is. You've just found that out. There is a slight delay. There's like a second delay on Zoom calls. It's a bit annoying. So I'll try not to talk over you.
No worries. Good.
Right. How about obviously we're here to chat about the app, RealRider app. But first, can we find out a little bit more about you? Like, who are you? How'd you get into bikes? And what's brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, well, okay. So I'm co-founder of RealSafe Technologies. RealRider is one of our products and the app that kind of got us started. But I was a bit of a late bloomer when it came to motorcycling. Typically on trials bikes when I was younger, and then got into music and I was a drummer and and those kind of things. And then you have kids, and so I never really managed to pick up the biking again until probably quite late on, to be fair. And we were making lots and lots of videos about motorcycling for the Highways Agency quite a long time ago, and that's where I kind of fell in love with the kind of motorcycling thing. I had two young children that I was responsible for as well. So it was always a bit like, when do I kind of do it? Just knowing my kind of adrenaline junkie sort of, the persona, as it were. I was thinking I'd have to be a bit cautious and find the right time. But getting into like motorcycle safety, motorcycle kind of products, and doing a lot of things we did in the early sort of 2000s. I was around bikes literally all the time, and it was a weird thing because everybody thought I knew. They thought I was a rider, and I said, "Well, I don't. I know technical stuff, and obviously with scripting for films, as you probably appreciate, you tend to pick up a lot." So I picked up a lot of roadcraft through the films with the Highways Agency, and people just assumed I rode, but I didn't. It was the biggest lie at the time. It's I'm in between bikes at the moment. So it was kind of being around bikes, being involved in motorcycle training, all the kind of things, and then finally had the opportunity to say, right, I'm going to get through it, and got through my test pretty quickly in the winter. What a great time to learn to ride.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're drifting around corners. You don't realise you're drifting around corners, and it was fun. It was great. I really enjoyed it. And we were working with BMW at the time, and they gave me a press bike. It was an F900 GS red one. It was beautiful. I had that for about 6 months.
Wow.
Straight out of passing my test, it's 6,000 miles on it. I went literally everywhere, but I started my IM straight away as well because I was like, right, I want to go into this and I'm going to learn as much as I can. And then had a break of a few months and got the RS in the February 2016. And a bit of a late bloomer, decided then to just ride all of the time. And as you know, when we met at Donington, 79,000 miles. Under my belt in 7 years, so it got used, So it was a natural evolving of like, right, okay, now I've got a bike, I'm literally everywhere. And I commuted to work every day, which was about 90 miles up to Newcastle and back, all year round, winter. I mean, not snow, but if it was frosty, yeah, fair enough, So it was just, I just threw myself into it, did lands into John O'Groats. I'd only picked the bike up a few months, thought, well, hey, throw myself into it,
Mm-hmm.
And did that. And it was just loved it, absolutely loved it, to the point where, why wasn't I doing this years ago? But the circumstances sometimes, it doesn't allow you to do it,
I also think, for me personally, knowing the type of person I was, say 10 years previously, I'm like you, I'm a late bloomer. I was 2008, so I was 32 when I passed my test. And I think about the type of bloke I was in my 20s. It probably wouldn't have been very healthy for me to have the bike then. I'm not sure how long I would have lasted because I got carried away with being on a bike and the bike life and the power, like the Gixxer 1000, the sports bikes, just the power of it. And I got away with it for a long time until I eventually spannered myself. But I'm not sure if I would have got away with it in my 20s. I don't know. Everyone's different, obviously, but for me personally, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I don't suppose it was the right time. I think, and your circumstances, and I was working in radio, and I was doing all sorts of kind of things that really didn't relate to biking until we started doing projects, and it was like a new bit about biking, and then we literally, for this big project called Handle It or Lose It. This is going right back to pre Facebook. It was North Yorkshire Council had a major problem with people coming from all over the country to ride their roads. Now, they're my roads. I ride them all the time. I don't live in the county. So the road safety teams were like, well, keep coming and crashing on our roads. And what do we do? So all the marketing and materials and stuff they were doing had no impact whatsoever because people didn't live in the county. So we got kind of drafted in. We were at a kind of public sector marketing company at the time, which was very much around government projects. Motorcycle was one of them, health kind of thing. We got drafted in to try and do something, and it was interesting because we started right from the beginning. It was a typical sports bike rider, the born agains. I hate that phrase now, but crikey, it just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it, when you're in that environment? And we really wanted to understand, well, what was causing them to crash and what was the behaviour and all this kind of thing, because it wasn't necessarily down to speed. So we met a guy called Jeff Crowther, Professor Jeff Crowther, from Huddersfield University. Absolutely amazing bloke, and he'd done a lot of studies around what makes bikers do what they do, the kind of getting inside the head, all those kind of things. So we had to really learn a lot within, and that's kind of probably where I started getting really excited about motorcycling, to understand what could we then create to help these riders coming into a county with brilliant roads and crashing. And the crashes tend to be on bends. Hadn't even seen the bend, lose control, hitting the vehicle, those kind of things. So we were tasked with creating something, and we created this thing called Handle It or Lose It, which was beyond its time, I think, at the time. And it was kind of like, it was weird. It had a rider development program that the local police, the motorcycle police guys who did it off duty, and it was all about like, right, guys, come on, let's look at where you're at with your skills, and let's look at holding those skills. And it become really, really successful. It won a Prince Michael International Award because there was an outcome from it. It was engaging riders. We had guys, writing their pants filling moments. I mean, it was very crude and rudimentary at the time. There was like bright pink yellows, and we had this 40-foot biker Bob with pants outside of his leathers that we used to take around to events and stuff. It was mental if I think back to what we did. But there'd never been anything like it. Yeah. And the point of it, we had a ZX10R and we had an R1 all branded up with his pinks and yellows. And we had handleitloseit.com, which doesn't exist anymore. And then we had flybytheseatyourpants.com, which were on the back of the pants. Mm-hmm. People started wearing pants and just getting into it. We had condoms made. It was mental what we were doing. But the point of it was getting their attention, and the website really sort of developed, and people started sharing like lots and lots of detailed stories about they had a near miss, their pants filling moment, and it was childish, but it worked. It worked really well. But the point of it was there was an outcome of, right, okay, we discussed bends, we looked at, taking photographs of bends, and there was a tractor, and started really getting people to think about reading the road and looking for the signs and that kind of thing. And it just went national. It was very successful. It was funded by local authorities and partnerships and those kind of things, which is a danger when you've got something that's so successful that if the money dries up, it just dries up. And that's when I met a guy from the highways agency. I was at a RoSPA conference. I used to go present at RoSPA about what we were doing and the fact that these guys were training. And actually, when they were, we did some research afterwards, they were probably not going as quick because they'd seen the bend, they'd planned for the bend, right road position, gear, and they were enjoying rather than, one guy. Well, I remember setting off, I remember getting there, and I remember my knuckles being white, and and when you become a rider and when you're riding, powerful bikes, you kind of get that to a certain extent, but it was really, really successful. But it was just web-based, and social media had come out, I think, at that point. And that's where we started working with the highways agency, and the whole thing of taking what we were doing as a web-based thing, and, well, what if we had some money to do a film? So Great Roads, Great Rides was supposed to be a 10-minute film. It ended up being like an hour because we just rammed it full of all sorts. We had the police helicopter doing filming because they were on the handle at Lewis at course. They were on the trainers. We can get a helicopter and we can use it as a training exercise, just so you could get a vantage point of Glenn, the rider at the time, doing a commentary ride. And it just worked. We did loads of different, security, group riding, crash scene management, which is where we had the idea for our stuff. And reading the roads, probably where I learned so much, even though I wasn't riding, because it was all roadcraft. And it was a very...
Sorry to interrupt for two ticks, but it's quite important, this, I think. Is that film still available?
It is. We made two. We made one in 2016 called Great Roads, Great Rides. And it's online. I think it's on YouTube. I've got a couple of discs, I think, left, but it was very successful because Ride Magazine, we worked with Tommy Hill. We went and did the whole science behind the bike. So we had Tommy Hill at Alton Park, camera crew trying to keep up with him. He'd never ridden so slow. To talk about the dynamics between a track bike and a road bike and the different dynamics. And Tommy loved it because it was, it was his way of being able to talk about what he does. And he was good at riding. Yeah, and it was really, really good. So this film became a monster.
I've never heard of it.
Have you not? It's 2016. Phenomenal piece of content. BikeSafe, the IM, RoSPA, they all started using it. The way that it worked, because we were working with the highways agency nationally, because Scotland got involved in Ireland and everything else. They all had partnerships around the country because they were engineering roads and they could only engineer so far. And then they got money to do education. But they were like, well, we're a highways agency, and, we're not very exciting. So we thought, well, look, because we sometimes jump onto the network to get to somewhere the best roads quickly, particularly over the lakes. So it was about, for them, well, what can we create? And we've got money to produce the DVDs. So it just cascaded everywhere, got DVDs handed out. I say Ride Magazine, we did, it was a front cover of that. They got behind it. They thought it was great. It won a Prince Michael award. That one won an award as well. Because it had an outcome of let's get you into rider skills development. It wasn't preachy. I remember getting ordered down to the Department for Transport because the Think campaign wanted to get their hands on it, and we were like, well, we don't want you plastering Think all over it, because as soon as that gets landed on it, then people are going to get turned off, and we were like, well, who do you think you are, and all this kind of thing. And it was like, hang on, we're creating something really, really good here that riders can get some skills. So we kind of managed to fight them off. We said supporting Think Academy at the time. It was when they launched their academy. Right. And it was just, and I learned so much, although I wasn't riding. But I picked up all sorts when I eventually did my IM. I mean, I got a first. I mean, the guy, Bob Brown from Durham Police, he was like, hang on a minute, how he must have been right. I've got it, but I didn't have any machine control, you know. So that was so successful. We then made number 2. You know, it was Great Rides Volume 2. And that was the Reading the Road edition that we did over in Lancashire using, I remember that it was a Jet Ranger helicopter. It cost $6,000 an hour. Jeez. It was like ridiculous with this big ball mounted MHD camera.
Have you heard of drones?
The drones didn't exist. This was 2018. This one was made, and we had to get a helicopter. And can you imagine trying to set that up? And we had the director was in the helicopter. I was in a van on a bank like that, right? We were all like, we all had a kind of walkie-talkie thing, if you like. And Glenn was coming up, and I had to be the van that's coming up the bank that you can see from the trees, but only if you look. And just coordinating that with the helicopter. Yeah. I remember I was waiting for Glenn's cue, and all I could hear was this massive Jet Ranger helicopter. Right? I'm like, I can't. When do I go? Don't go now. Don't do it. And it was bizarre, but it was brilliant. And we did, you know, we started introducing graphics on the screen as well. I mean, this was really ahead of its time. There was nothing like it out there, but it got us all the kind of knowledge. And for me, I was like, I'll get the bike. You know, it was like my time is right, and the kids were older then. But it was just, the content was just, it was all about giving, you know, again, thinking back to what the problem was in North Yorkshire, and saying, look, and you know, when you do any kind of a training, it's like, right, lift your head, look, what's the road paint telling you, and, you know, where's the junction, and all those kind of things. But you've got to be very careful the way you present that, because you know, you can't say, oh, well, you've got to slow down. I mean, oh, come on. But you know, if you've read the road, if you've seen it, if you get the right gain, all that kind of thing. So it was great. I loved it. It was a brilliant time of, you know, we had a very successful public sector company until the coalition government destroyed it overnight, when everything got cut. It was like, what? But we had, you know, as a company, we had funds, and we had an idea for developing what is now kind of our core technology. And that was because of the first film with working with the Great North Air Ambulance, doing crash scene management. And I think crash scene management inspired Biker Down, as I understand it, as I was told, because it was all about, you come around a bend, you see a crash scene, what do you do? Yeah. The Great North Air Ambulance were fantastic, because we got the helicopter. And luckily, we had it very, very short amount of time, but we had the paramedics. And they were sat talking about, what do you do? Yeah, act. I think was one of the key things. And it was during that filming, you know, having a cup of tea in between takes, and that the guys were saying, look, Helmsley TT, I do the Helmsley TT 3-4 times a week. It's our normal. It's where I do a lot of the testing as well. Not that I throw myself off the bike, although I did early in the year. But come back to that. But it was, you know, they would land the helicopter, and because somebody had rang 999 or whatever, you know, and they'd find the bike, but they couldn't find the ride. And this was like 2016, and I was thinking, well, what do you do? You know, well, by the time we find the rider may be unconscious. There's no medical information. We don't know whether they're allergic to penicillin or latex, and it was just kind of one of those things where you think, well, yeah, but what do you do? Well, we have to sometimes scramble a police helicopter with an imaging camera, and it all takes time. And the kind of smartphones, as you know, hadn't come out. There was nothing really we could do. So we kind of went on and made more films and did more things until austerity. And we were like, we've got to do something. So we took the money that we had in the business, and we used that to start playing around with accelerometers and, you know, and all those kind of things. And that's kind of where the journey started. But I remember going back to the air ambulance, because they're based at Teesside Airport near me, and saying, look what we've created. We've got this whole thing that could tell you where the rider would be in that field. And I remember the pilot, I think it was the pilot at the time, I don't think he's there anymore. And he always stuck it in mind. He said, if you can give me the coordinates of where a rider is, and we get that information quickly, then we can work out where we can land as close to the rider as possible. And it was one of those things where, you know, what we've done over the years with using satellite data and the things that we've been able to engineer around that is all about accuracy. And it's just stuck. It's stuck in my mind in terms of, right, okay, we can do that. But what else do we need to do? And they put us in touch with the North East Ambulance Service at the time. This was like 2010, I think it was. And we walked in there and I met the guy that runs the control room, John Rowland, and the famous John Rowland. And he just went, wow, this is fantastic, because we just don't have that information. We don't have access to that data. Or we don't, you know, critical time is critical. And he just said, what do you need from us? And well, we need your support. We need your guidance on letting us know what you want, you know, because we could have sent loads of information to him, you know, friends and family, and no, we don't want any of that. We get BT get about 100,000 calls a day, easily, 999 calls, and sometimes like 120,000 at peak times. They want one piece of trusted data quickly. And it was like, right, okay. And that journey started way before really most people have had smartphones. And certainly our biggest problem, big problem back then, is that people we wanted to use our technology didn't have smartphones. Like, you know, they're like, I've got a Motorola. Will it work on that? You know?
Yeah.
I've got a little Nokia.
When was this? 2008, 2010?
So 2010, the end of 2010, we started working on kind of the tech. So really, you're looking at creating a little program within a smartphone to utilize location, utilize accelerometers, magnometers, all those kind of things, proximity, and actually work out. We got a mathematician from a local university to work out things, and we ended up creating this little program that essentially it was a basic app that we could crash and deliver the information that we needed, but we didn't know what overall information was required by the emergency services until we started working with North East Ambulance Service.
Gotcha.
And what we did do, which was interesting, we were the Autodrome, Teesside Autodrome. We did a piece of work around what was possible on a sports bike, because when you start creating technology like this, you've got to really understand the mechanics of smartphones and accelerometers and all those kind of things. But you've got to also look at, well, what's normal riding activity, you know, and what's not.
Yeah.
And that was fun. I wasn't riding at the time, so it was a shame I couldn't go around the track, and probably I would have fallen off anyway. So Glenn, who had been involved in our Great Wars, Great Rides, very, very accomplished rider. He does right. I think he had an R1 at the time, or it doesn't matter, it been a Richardson. So we had a little program, and that program was all about understanding the dynamics around heavy braking, accelerated cornering, what's the G when you're going around a corner. And then the reason we used the track is that we could probably represent heavy riding and you know, what you get out in the countryside, but in a controlled area. So we started to study all the data in terms of what was possible. And then from there, you start looking at, all right, well, that's possible. So we need to think about, well, anything above that in terms of an oscillation, if you like, isn't really possible unless you've hit something.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting journey to really think about the science, the mathematician. Obviously, the mathematician got involved because one of the big things that we found is that longitude and latitude isn't used by emergency services. I mean, we're talking about way back here. They used eastings and northings as an entire emergency service network. Yeah. So we had to work out how to convert it. So that's
establishing, anyone not aware, that's establishing the coordinates, effectively, the location, the exact location.
Yeah.
Right, gotcha.
And it's, and you know, when you start looking at the satellite data, bearing in mind, we're going back to, I'm a big space fan. I mean, Elon Musk and all, I'm a massive fan in SpaceX. So I do space conferences. I kind of talk because we commercialize space data, which is just bonkers. But it's what we can do with the data. At the time, there wasn't as many satellites. I mean, believe it or not, yes, there was, but not to the level of satellites you've got nowadays. And so the accuracy over those years has got better. The confidence level that we were reporting which was important because when I say confidence level, GPS can be out by 6 to 10 meters, even larger. But certainly back then, when it was early days for us, the confidence level give a kind of degree of accuracy. So when we sent that information with for example, an emergency alert, at least emergency services, paramedics, air ambulance could look at that and go, right, okay, if you think about the circle, the riders are within that circle.
Yeah.
And that circle over time has got tighter and tighter and tighter as more satellites have gone up. But the confidence level is really, really important. We then started looking at direction of travel, which we were the first to do this anyway, period. But we were the first to start reporting direction of travel. And we found the reason for that was quite important because if there's been a crash in a carriageway, and there's not an entry point for miles, well, which way did the ambulance go? Because we don't know, So direction of travel allowed us to report, obviously, the way
southbound, yeah,
exactly. And it was all about working with North East Ambulance Service and the wider emergency service community about, okay, we can do this, but how can we make it better? How can we give you as much information that you need that's usable? Because you can bombard them. We could send them loads, but no, we don't. We just need to know. Location's absolutely critical. The more accurate the location, direction of travel is key. And then all the other information around that, like your mobile number, your name, bike information, which was one of the things we have to satisfy in Europe, is that we have to provide what's classed as a minimum set of data values. We get involved in European projects, and so the MSD, the minimum set of data, means you have to provide bike information or car information, those kind of things, which helps them in terms of identifying, well, what are we looking for, and then the medical information was something that was born out of 2016 in terms of, well, that's useful to know because who are we treating and what do we know about them? I think it was always what I got from the early kind of, when you start looking at what we can do as a service is who we going to, where are they, what do we know about them, and how quickly can you get that information to us? That was our building blocks for creating the technology. And when you become a rider yourself, I mean, my son rides as well. He probably rides better than me now, but there you go. But I won't tell him that. I won't tell him. You met my son anyway at Donington.
I did,
that lad can ride. I mean, neighbours were, the backdrop is when we went to Wales this year. We all ride, and they rely on our technology. So, and I rely on the technology. Not like, I'm creating an app because it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Creating
your
some technology
yourselves
because it's you know what I mean. It's something, and you're always looking to do what better. What are the things that are going to potentially be use cases, the edge cases, all those kind of things. But it's an incredible journey, really, and a decade. If we think about when we first launched our first app to Apple was 2013, which I think about that and think, what? But it was so early. It was so early. People just didn't get it. They didn't believe. I've got a phone here. They can't see. They didn't believe a phone could do that, let alone the infrastructure that we had to raise a lot of money to do this. And people don't appreciate that. They don't realise that there's an emergency alerting infrastructure that we've got that's now connected pretty much around the world to emergency services. They don't know that. We don't really. We should talk about a bit more. But it's all about, if I'm out there, if something happens to me, I kind of want to make sure that I'm going to get found. And it's a weird thing because I don't think about it, because you get on your bike and go, don't you? I was on a bike. Like, you've just come back from, well, crikey, I couldn't keep up with where you went.
It's been a busy year,
yeah. I was like, hang on a minute, is he supposed to be back? He's supposed to be back for our brew time. But yeah, it's just an incredible journey, and just really, quite passionate about understanding what technology can do. Tech for good is the thing we kind of always talk about, and it affects us as my friends and family, and I'm going to
absolutely, yeah. As riders, it's sometimes I think we forget, don't we? It's not just us, is it? As you just said, there's your family ultimately around about who worry about you every time you're out on the bike, and friends and stuff. And well, this app does give some peace of mind there ultimately, because you've always got your phone on you, haven't you? Or at least on the bike. I use mine on a holder on the bike. But well, that brings us neatly into the actual app. Two things. One's very rude of me. Apologies. Do you have a drink for the evening?
Sorry, I already started before you.
That's no problems, no worries. Slang, cheers to your health.
Cheers.
And the other thing was, you mentioned the two films there. That stuck with me because I wasn't aware of them. I've never seen them.
Right.
And bearing in mind, I've done a degree of advanced training through the police and stuff. I wasn't aware of them. So you mentioned that they are available, should be available on things like YouTube. I'll dig around. And if I can't get it online, obviously I'll ask you. And if I can't, if it's not available online, maybe we can figure out some way of making it available online for people to watch. Because it sounds like it's going to be something people should see. Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't say dated. I suppose that there's other things that have happened since then. But it's got all of the fundamentals of what, and it was nice because it got used and it got used in training. I used to go to like the NEC, the bike show, Motorcycle Live, and the RealSafe tent would be playing it, and you walk past and go, yeah, that's quite good. I was really proud of that piece of content because. Well, piece of content was a really big film, and we made two of them. And it was really crikey. It was just like, right, what can we put in a film that will give somebody that insight? Because you never know when you're going to be in that. I've been in so many of the situations as a rider that we did all those years ago, but I kind of planned for it because it's for me it was really good because it was all in here before I actually got on the bike. So it was quite. And
then you could apply the practical side to it.
Exactly, it was intuitive because it was already there because I understood the dynamics, and then so it was just really about being confident on a bike, which is why I threw myself in and just. I mean, fortunately, I was riding to work every day, and that certainly in the winter. Some of the back roads I was getting to the A1, deer running out in front of you, back end slipping. At one point, I thought my back end was going to overtake me because I'd gone around and there was a muck from a farm, and you're like, whoa. But they all say, don't it? You hone your skills in the winter because, frankly, man, you don't know what you're going to be riding over, and you've got to deal with the cold. You've got to deal with all those kind of things, and I think I would like to think I'm a better rider for riding all year round and just spending time on the bike and understanding what I can and can't do, kind of thing,
Yeah, definitely. I think the more miles you do, and the most varied of conditions, day, nighttime, beautiful sunny weather, freezing cold weather, the rain, when it just goes from really hot to rain, because then obviously all the oil comes out of the tar and you end up with really slidey roads, all these things, miles on the bike and just experience of those miles passing underneath you, it all makes you into a better rider ultimately, doesn't it, for sure.
Well, getting back to the films, I mean, I've got a couple, I think I've still got a couple of the DVDs. I'm pretty sure that I'll dig them out because it was kind of, I always put them around, and I'll see for all. If not, I've got versions that I can send to you. At least you can see it.
Fantastic, brilliant. I'd love to see them. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, lovely, folks. We'll figure that out. One way or another, we'll try and get these videos out so that you're available to see them. They are available for you to see them. Right. Okay. So this brings us on to the actual app, RealRider. So the app, what's it all about?
Well, it started as a crash detection system, automatic crash detection, because that was the primary reason for creating the core technology that we did, following the work with the air ambulance. But it was like, okay, as a basic app, well, you want to route record, you want to track what you do. And it kind of it evolved from being a very, very basic app that was all about safety into adding other features. And it's evolved over the years. The thing is, for the company, because RealSafe Technologies, as a core company, develops technology for smartphone-based accident technology and emergency alerting. So the company has the core technology, and RealRider is one of our products. We license our technology into other things. So it's kind of, the company's grown and evolved since the early days of just RealRider. But the app itself is, it's. I mean, now if you look at it, if I look at it now in terms of what we're doing with it now to the first version, I look at the first version and think, what were we doing? You know, the graphics, the kind of, I look at it and I look, and it, some of the posters that we're using, like, as essential as pulling on your helmet. I didn't even think that was an innuendo until we had it on a massive like pop-up stand at the NEC, and this guy goes, I went, what? And it got through, you think about even the printer, didn't even think about it.
I think that's brilliant, though. You should play on that. You should play on it. Use it.
It was a bit of schoolboy humor, really. But it was essential as pulling on your helmet or getting your gear on, and so it started off as a crash detection app. And I think it's evolved over the years. We for quite a bit of time, we weren't really doing much with it because the focus of certainly RealSafe Technologies licensing. We started working with a big in-car camera. I'm not allowed to say who it is for legal reasons. I'll get shot. But it's a dash camera. That's all I'm allowed to say. That took quite a big part of the focus of the business, which was our first licensing. So we power the bit that alerts the emergency services. Now part of our technology goes into the app that connects to the camera, and that's literally went live in Japan earlier this year. So it's a global service. It was a big deal for us, but we're not allowed to shout about it, which is really frustrating. So that's a big part of what we do. But
why is that then? Why aren't you allowed to shout about it?
They wanted to own. I've said it really quickly. So they wanted to own what they called it, which is essentially it's our cloud-based global emergency alert platform. It's called Resin. Effectively, what that does is it ingests the data from an app, works out where in the world you are, patches it through to the nearest ambulance service via, in the UK, it's BT. We use Bosch for North America, for Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Japan.
Yeah.
For the whole of North America, we use Northern 911. And it goes through, because we're not allowed to see the data because for GDPR and other reasons. The data from the app, which is collected in milliseconds, is patched through to wherever the rider is in the world to the nearest ambulance service through a process. And that process is like milliseconds. It's unbelievably quick. Wow. And that's that. We spent a long time setting that thing up. We were doing cloud hosted stuff way before cloud became, cloud in what we use it as now for photos and everything else, because we knew we could deliver it pretty much anywhere. There's obviously network and it's very reliable and fast and secure. So all those things in terms of handling secure data is other things you've got to kind of consider when building an emergency alerting platform. So the car dash cam, I'm not going to say the name, it plugs into our system. Their lawyers were like, no. They want to own this, and so we had to agree that we weren't allowed unless it's from the NDA. Gotcha. It's a shame. I've had these discussions, so you're missing because it's actually government approved. We helped create the app accreditation with British AppCo a long time ago to really make sure that apps that wanted to connect to 999 met a certain criteria, because we felt we did it the right way. We didn't want to be a burden to the NHS. We wanted to make sure that we could validate, and I'll talk about validation in a second when I talk about the app a bit more, but people don't know what we've done over the years in terms of putting systems in place, helping to protect emergency services from apps that might want to just connect to 999. So there's a very robust app accreditation scheme, and we were involved in a project in Europe, which was it's kind of a similar thing for rider-based systems, helmets, those kind of things, and it's making sure that we protect that environment. And that was quite interesting. That was quite interesting to do that, because we had to look at when we look at the app does crash detection. Now, impact is one thing. We knew what was possible through the thresholds, through the racetrack. But you've always got to look at a balance between not making it too sensitive and then going the other way, because you might miss something. And that's a very, very fine art. And an impact is one thing you can trigger, But then it's all the things that we do afterwards, which are all these processes that we created over the years through R&D and road testing. You know, I mean, the thousands, millions of miles we've done to understand what's happening after a crash. Is the rider still moving? You know, the biggest challenge we've had is with bike-mounted phones. When we first started, it was hardware sat nav. So now people are using phones more and mount them to the bikes. Yep. So we found the sensitivity. The good thing about the body is your body acts as a natural vibration dampener. And for us, when we started, you always would put the phone in your pocket because 90% of crashes involve a rider being thrown from the motorcycle, which is now, you know, Bosch and BMW found out through a big study they did a few years ago. So that's fact. And I always go back to the air ambulance pilot saying, well, I want to find out where the rider is, not necessarily the bike. So that's why we always recommended keeping the phone on you, because it's where you're going to end up, because that's where the last bit of data we send is the location data once we've gone through all the processes and validation, etc. And that's really critically important. And the other thing is your body just, you know, you think about the engine vibrations, the road vibrations, they all can confuse technology. And certainly I know that when I got the Apple Watch, I first picked up the new RS and it went off 3 times. I rode it home on the A19 and it was calling the emergency services. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Whereas what we found when we saw the big adoption of mounting phones to bikes is we started having the vibrations suddenly, you know, quite severe. And you talked about the oscillation within an LED. You hit a massive bump and then stop. What the system was thinking is bang, stop.
Impact. Yeah.
Right, okay. And then it started waiting and it started monitoring the sensors, and we use loads of sensors within the phone, GPS and those other things. And it waits, and if then there's no movement, the last bit of, if you like, validation is the on-screen countdown, which scares people, because when it happens, they're like, whoa, what's going on? And the amount of time that we use was agreed with the North East Ambulance Service in terms of, in the grand scheme of things, if you're in a field, nobody knows who you are, we need to make sure and validate that you do need assistance. So the countdown allows you to cancel it, as I did when I landed in the field. We'll come to that. And if you don't move and don't interact with it, then that's when it packages it up and sends it away to where it needs to be. So it's quite a sophisticated. That's just within app, but then you've got all the back end emergency alerting system and the frameworks that we have set up and the agreements with the ambulance services. We're trusted because we don't send false alerts. Sometimes we send stuff because there's always going to be an edge case. Yeah. And we get that, but it's absolutely less than 1% compared to what we now know from phones, Android, Apple. And I can say this because it's in the public domain. They're causing absolute chaos with emergency services around the world with false alerts, which is a shame, really. But why we spent so long in trying to protect the emergency services by thinking about, well, what could go wrong, and what like the early days before we created something called auto pause. You know, we had a 2-year pilot where we said, look, here you are, guys, everybody use it. Thinking people would read the instructions, but nobody reads instructions. You know?
Nobody does.
So the biggest thing, and again, I remember this lady. She says, "Oh, I got home and I was busting for a wee, and she had the phone in her jacket pocket, threw her jacket on the floor, and ran upstairs." So the phone's there, like that. What, you know? And it started going.
What happened there? Yeah.
It started counting down. By the time she got down, she could hear voices. And the ambulance service, because what happens with agreement across the world is that the ambulance service, once they get it, they'll always call the phone 3 times. There's a standard protocol, final validation. If they can't get hold of the rider, then, because it's ambulance only, not to the police, it's like, right, there's somebody here that needs assistance. And they'll arrange the most appropriate response. And you know that it could be a police, some of the paramedics work for police, it could be anything, not necessarily a standard ambulance that people always think, well, you know. And it was like, well, did you not stop it when you got home? Well, no, I needed it. You know, you think, oh my goodness. So we learned early on that you couldn't rely on people to turn things on and off, and you couldn't connect to bikes. My dream has always been like, you turn your engine on, this whole thing starts. And that's why we're talking to quite a number of major manufacturers. We are, well, you probably always work with Triumph as well, but So the Bluetooth engine management thing is brilliant because it could effectively control the system. It's only active when the engine's on. And
when the engine's on, yeah.
Exactly. So we had to develop something called auto pause, which is just basic to take the onus away from the user. And what that basically does is it only actively monitors the sensors in the phone when you're above a certain threshold. And again, we look at the GPS quite a lot, constantly. Not that we're recording it, we're just looking at it, and that determines whether you're actually traveling above a certain threshold. So it's really stopping your phone. You put your jacket on, you drop your phone, even though you've started out tech, it won't go off because you're not technically riding. And equally, when you're coming into a petrol station, by the time you've slowed down, it then automatically pauses. But there are those edge cases which we can't control. But if we do completely control those, then we risk missing those crashes. So it's a very, very fine art of how we do that. And we had to spend quite a bit of time this year engineering the whole system for mounted devices, just because some bikes were made, it was incredibly sensitive to certainly some of the Honda CBs. I think the amount of vibration coming from those guys, those bikes, Harleys, obviously. I mean, we won't talk about that. But you're constantly looking at the systems and the technology and what's changing and how you need to then kind of adapt. And there's a lot goes into it, and that's probably why I'm always out on the bike, because I've normally got about 15, 20 phones strapped to me. When I pull up at a McDonald's and I start getting my phones out, and they're
like a drug dealer.
Well, no, I'm just testing. What are you testing? And then I get in a conversation, and I'm there for hours. But it takes a lot. You're looking at battery levels, all kind of things, data usage, which it really is pretty good these days. We've engineered it in a way that it records GPX instead of GPS. So GPX data is incredibly small, it's efficient, and then you can straight away stick it into a sat nav. But look, coming back to the original question, what is the app? I mean, we're really, really proud of it now. We've spent quite a long time in the last, certainly this year, in really looking at the features and really kind of developing those features around what we want as riders. And that's the key thing, is that the amount of riding that we do, the crash detection emergency alerting is a solid piece of technology. It has been since we first launched it. We've refined it over the years because changing in rider behavior and mountain bikes. So that's always been completely solid. We build things around it in terms of the emergency infrastructure. So that's all brilliant. But we started looking at the way the route recording works and the group riding, which we absolutely love, that people don't even know it exists, really, because we don't shout about it enough.
So what is that? Because I've seen some marketing based around it, but again, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure how it works. Like how would the group ride thing work? What's the idea behind it?
So one of the things we found quite a lot with our own riding is that we're all kind of we don't all live. Some of us live in the same street, but we go and meet people normally in Helmsley, or when we go to Wales, there's people coming from, say, Brize Norton, Cumbria. Yeah. And there's lots and lots of other things we found out that people going into, one guy was going to Spain on a big group tour, and guy got separated from the guys, comes around the corner, sees a group of riders, follows the group of riders, and ends up going completely to a different place. And they wasted hours trying to find him. And there was little things like that. We thought, well, hang on a minute, come on, we've got to be able to do something that fulfills that problem or solves that problem. So the group riding was a way of securely, in a way that I go out with lots of different groups of riders. So within the group riding screen, you can create groups. So effectively, we've got the Queensgate Motorcycle Club, which is just the neighbours and things. So we had about 6 of us in there. So when we're going to go out, one of the guys comes from Irish Lehman. He's part of that group. When we switch it on, the first person turns the group ride on, and then everybody gets a notification that group is started, and they all then turn it on. And they all then appear on the map based on your location. The map expands based on how far everybody is away from each other.
Gotcha. So as closer you get to...
Gotcha. It zooms in. Yeah. And that was all right in terms of great functionality. Everyone knows where everybody is. It's updated in relative real time. It doesn't use much data either, because one of the key things we did with testing is what's the impact on data. And what it does is it's uploading, it's updating the cloud server and where everybody else is in relation to everybody else every few seconds. It's incredibly accurate, and it's a fantastic piece of technology that we've evolved and built and refined over the last year, to be fair. And we use it when we go out all the time. So it's really, really good, because we've got like these three kind of settings within the location icon. So when it's blue, the map will always adjust on a group ride to show where everybody is. So if somebody did get lost, the map expands and everybody can see where they're going. Gotcha. Now, once you get out of range of your comms, obviously you can ring that person if you need to, but the person who's gone the wrong way can see that, hang on a minute.
Yeah,
and it makes sure, exactly, it kind of makes sure everybody stays together, particularly if there's people going on a route that they don't know very well. And it's like you get stuck behind tractors and cars and everything else. So it's a really good way of keeping everybody together. So the blue is really about, if you're not using group ride, blue is like, it'll always show you the route that you're recording, and it expands. And then we have a green setting, which will just always focus on where you are, which on a group ride, you wouldn't really use that. And then the grey, the grey bit allows you to manipulate the map and move the map in relation to where you are, and it'll stay there. And the reason that was useful is because we're going to the lakes, I think it was earlier this year. And I don't know whether you've rode to Kendall. I mean, who invented that one-way system? I do not know. And we all got separated, and it was like herding sheep. And one guy, Gary, who's like from Cumbria, he was away. So clicking the grey icon or turning the grey, you're able then to move the map around and see where everybody is. Because the other guy had gone home and he was on his way over to, I think he was at Hawes at that point. So if I left it in blue, the map was then expanding, because that's what it's assigned to.
You couldn't see any detail.
So it's the little things like that you have to think about because of what can happen on a ride out. It's quite useful. And I'm still telling the guys who use it all the time, right, the blue is, the grey is, so we can, and it just means you can focus in. The Kendall example was the best one, because, if we didn't have that, we could have been going around in circles, all the time, because once you lose comms, it's like it's like pain in the neck. But we could see where we were all were. So it's like, okay.
That could be handy for... sorry, mate. I'm just thinking as you're talking, because I do these meetup and group rides through Patreon, through my clan over on Patreon. We've got one coming soon, actually, in Wales, and and I think we've had up to 90 people, 90 bikes on it before, and more than one occasion we've had people. So we use a drop-off marker system, and obviously most people are on. Well, there's a lot of GSs. It's very GS heavy, beards. Adventure lids, that kind of ruckus suits, it's that brigade. And you come across people like that all the time, and you tend to find when other groups are out riding, they use the drop-off marker system too. And on at least one occasion, we've come to like a staggered crossroads, and there's one person marking a junction to the left and one person marking a junction to the right, and you're just like, who's who? Where'd you go here? So you end up losing people. So that would be ideal for something like that, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny. I was up at Virtue BMW today. I'll give them a shout. I mentioned buying the bikes in there. We all do. He's known in the app for donkey's years, Stephen, who sorts my bikes out. And I showed him a little video I think I sent to you, which we made last Sunday. We had loads of fun making this content, where we had the drone and we had all the bikes out. We pulled this content together in a space of a couple of hours. It was just crazy. I showed him, he says, that's a blooming useful piece of tech. I says, why? He says, well, we took them all down to the off-road, the BMW off-road centre. Yeah. And he says, literally got out of the dealership and they all just went, right? Because they all had their own sat navs, right? And he says, like, within 10 minutes, they're gone. And it was like, if I'd had something like this and we briefed them, look, we're doing this. And it's thinking about safety is one thing. Safety is never sexy, right? You never think about, well, what if you fall off? You don't. But a lot of guys do worry about if they ride alone, and I ride alone quite a lot. So it's one of the things. I love it. But we track our rides, and it's always nice to go back and go, well, that was a great bend and all that kind of thing. But the group ride really was born out of, it's a problem. How do we solve it? And it was trying to do something that was useful. And when you build something and you try it, you've got to refine it, because sometimes it doesn't work. There's always going to be some kind of education you haven't thought about. And the Wales trip that we do every year, this year was brilliant. Guy is coming down the M6 from Gary from Carlisle, Cumbria way, and you're on the M6. He's either on top of us because we're in a little group, and you're like looking in the mirror, and there's his light, and then we were coming home, and I'm going to mention Martin because he'd heard someone say Liverpool, but we said don't take the exit for Liverpool. So we appealed. So Gary goes up the M6, we come off and go that way. We look on the map and go, where's Martin going? Martin's heading to Liverpool. And it was one of those things that was like, it was just funny, because it's like, there you are, you're all looking at it and going, where are you going? And then you lose comments. So he was like, yeah. But then you realise what the error of his ways, and turned around and came back. But it's just really useful, and it's free. You don't have to pay for that as a service.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it's part of the app. So you download the app. So the app, free bit part of the app is route recording. You can add bike details, and it tracks how many rides you do, that kind of thing. Route recording, route sharing, GPX. You can take the GPX and stick it out into your sat nav. The only bit you really pay for, because it costs us a lot of money to administer, is the crash detection system.
Crash detection.
Do
you know how many ears just pricked up when you said it's free? Do you know that? All of a sudden, people are awake. What?
Yeah. Well, it's such a good such a good feature that we've created, because it solves a problem for us, and we haven't promoted it. Whenever I talk to someone about it and go, well, that's brilliant, so that's free. We've just launched a big update this week, because the old way of adding friends used a deep link. The problem that deep link, it wasn't really secure in a sense. What it was, because you'd send it to the person that you wanted to be friends with. But if someone got all that link, they could friend you, and then you don't know who they are, kind of thing. So we changed it to be mobile number only, so it's secure, it's fast. So we just pushed a big update this week for that, because one of the only reason you can do a group ride is if you've got friends on the app. So basically, download the app, set your profile up. If you're not interested in crash detection, then it doesn't really matter. You can use the route recording and the group riding, as long as you add people who you want to ride with, and then all you do is you go into the group ride section off of the ride page, and you just create a group and add your friends. You can name it, you can adjust it. Whenever you're going out, it's nice because we use it all the time. It just becomes second nature. It's like we've got a group of lads coming up for Scarborough, the big Oliver's Mount that happens once a year. And there's a lot of the guys come up from down south, Nottingham way and further. And every year we go out on a ride on a Saturday. And it's going to be really useful for things like that as well. There's like 25 of them this year. And they came up in...
Sorry to interrupt. Is that delay again? I'm just thinking in my head, obviously I do these big group rides. And so when you create a little group there for your friends on the app to join, is that purely private, only available to the people that you give the link to?
Yes. So the nice thing about, and that was one of the things that I've got about five groups in there. So it's really about, the usual group that we go out with. We probably activate about 2 or 3 times a week. And it's dead quick. Everyone gets a notification. It's funny, like when somebody does turn it on and you're not going out, like, oh, where are you going? You didn't tell me about this ride, and like, oh. So we like to wind people up with that, which is quite funny. But no, you get a notification. It just basically says, like, for example, if I turn the group ride on, Andy Richardson is activated, Queenskate, and people go, all right, okay. And it's kind of one of the things that you do before you go out riding. I mean, I get my kit on, we get people say, oh, you have to turn it on, turn it off. Well, yeah, but you have to do that with any app that fitness app, you've got to turn it on and turn it off. We can't magically. You're not allowed to make something just work without an app opening. It's rules from Apple and Google, and you just can't really do that.
It's privacy though as well, though, isn't it? As an end user, you want a degree of privacy there anyway. I only want people to know where I am and to come and see me when I activate the app and when I turn on that particular group, that group ride. Because for my own personal use, I have maybe 8 to 12 different tours that I'll do throughout a year, 2 or 3 different clan meets throughout the year. And each, just thinking ahead, obviously I've not used this within the app, but thinking ahead, I could end up with, a dozen, 20 different group rides created. And I only want people who are allocated to each of those group rides to know where I am if I activate that specific group ride. Is that how it works?
Yes, that's exactly how it works. You can only have one group ride running at a time, which is sensible because you'd only really be on one group anyway. I mean, it's got limitations in terms of how many people you can have in. Although it's supposed to be up to 12. We had 11 early in the year. When the guys from Scarborough, like the company Scarborough, came up, especially for the problem with Scarborough is where we want to take them and the roads that we ride all the time. Certainly, if you go over to the lakes and up to Hartside, and you'll know it's beautiful there. By the time you've got from Scarborough, Whitby, and across to Helmsley, you've already wasted the amount of time. So they came up, especially at the end of June, and we took them on what was just an 8-hour phenomenal ride. It was just absolutely brilliant. And they all had the group running because the first time they used it, they were like, this is brilliant. We all kept together. It was fantastic. And they were like, oh, they've been aware of the app for donkey's years, And they all went home, and then one of the guys that works for Scania Trucks, and Steve was like, turns the group ride on, right? And of course it popped up. I was like, all right, what's happening here? So I turned it on as well. So and I messaged, says, what are you doing? He says, oh, I'm just showing the guys at work. It's just, it was lovely because they really saw like, this is great because it's just a really nice piece of tech that is, I mean, you could say it's got safety benefits because you're making sure, because the worst thing is that someone gets lost and they're going to want to try and catch up. And I think the safety element around there is that, well, you know where they are, you're not going to lose them. Just catch up when you can. And generally speaking, if we see that someone's gone the wrong way, we'll slow down, we'll find somewhere to stop. And it just makes the ride out, particularly if you're going to go into Europe. And one of the things that people don't know about our technology is that you could ride from here anywhere in Europe. And the safety element is it's seamless. It just protects you wherever you go. So you can have that running, which is keeping you safe, and then you can have group ride running because you might be on a tour and someone might take a wrong turn. So it's thinking about features that do certain things depending on what you want out of an app, and it's really exciting at the moment because we're working on something called Follow Route, which we're going to hopefully release in the next couple of weeks. And that's going to allow you to look at some of the routes that the community have created. And when we say what they should create is make sure it's not from your home, obviously, although people did in the old days, like, don't do that. And then didn't set it to private, which, obvious problems. So we tend to fill up at one of the petrol stations and we'll start it from there, for example. Go out and do amazing routes. Some of the roads that we find and ride regularly, probably not the normal ones. Come back, save it, upload it. And what we're going to be able to allow people to do is to add that to something called Discover. And we're going to be asking for rider ambassadors. And we've got hoodies. We send hoodies out to people to do that. But it's about trying to create a catalogue of some of the, not the probably the most well known, but some of the really cracking roads that people were out. They were pretty good. And what you're going to be able to do is click Follow Route. It's not navigation. Navigation is very expensive for us to administer. I think it costs us about $4.99 if I want to use Mapbox, for example. So it costs us that per user. That's why we don't, it is very expensive to do navigation. But this is allow you to follow the route because we've already got the GPX file, we'll just basically plot it, and you'll be able to record a version of it as you're riding it. So it'll be like a dotted line. You'll be able to see where it is. You'll be able to follow it. And that's probably good nowadays because so many people are mounting the phones to the bikes. Not great in terms of why we created the tech in the first place, but you can't kind of have everything. But we're quite excited by that, because it's one thing that we've been asked for a long time is, well, why can't I just ride that route? Because we haven't got around to doing that.
It's one of my channel sponsors is Kali Moto, and I've been working with them for 3-4 years now, and I keep saying to them, because they already have quite a lot of what you've just spoken about. They don't have your group ride facility, which I think is fantastic. Although for me personally, my tours, there's at least 15 of us on those tours. So it's like, right, okay.
Why don't we try that? Because you never know. We haven't tested it with more than 12 people. Chances are it'll probably work. But I think we can probably do it. In fact, there we go. We'll take this off there. We'll do a challenge as long as I can come with you. And then
I'm going to the Alps in September. Are you coming?
Sorted. It will do it. I think we just need to make some adjustments, but we've not had loads of people using it, because it's our kind of best kept secret kind of thing, but we want to really start out promoting it now.
Well, I can certainly help you. What's the word? Not base test. Is it base test? Stress test. Yeah. Because on the clan ride outs, we normally have at least 30, 40 people, sometimes 90 plus. So, we can really stress that. Yeah. But I've always said to Kali Moto, I see a massive gap in the market for the social side of an app, a motorcycle particular app. And for me, like Kali Moto is set up to find ultimately the twistiest routes available right through to the most direct routes available, although it's still, the annoying thing for me is when you put it on the most direct route, it will still, if you're on the motorway, it will still take you off the motorway to go around the roundabout to come back on. That's really annoying. But I was like, if it had some way of integrating exactly what you've just said, group rides, and some way of, like, you create an account and me as another user, you come onto whichever app it's going to be, and you can search for location, you could search for a specific username, you can find that person, and then add them as a friend, and you can start arranging your own ride outs and all this sort of stuff. And Kali just don't seem to be interested in that. And I'm like, there's a massive market for that, I would have thought.
Yeah, we do know the guys. One obviously the guy that created it. Big fan. Love. We've been asked for a long time, why don't you do navigation? Well, we're about safety, and navigation is expensive to do, and do we compete? Well, and I know that they were working with Bosch, and it didn't
only for Europe, not for the UK.
Yeah, and I think that's now been pulled. Well, I do know it's been pulled, but because we work with Bosch, I kind of understand why. It was a bit clunky as well. I think from kind of they knew it was too clunky. They should really take our system and plug it in there. I mean, but I'm not saying that that's going to happen. But for us, we just want our technology used, obviously.
Yeah.
But no, I do like what they're doing, and we aspire to do. The problem I've got is we aspire to do all these really cool things, and exactly what you're saying there, because really we can do it. It's relatively easy to do as long as it's part of the roadmap. But our focus is also license, and obviously speaking to some of the big brands and OEMs, and we're talking to some people in Japan at the moment, which could be quite interesting. But you just still want to make your core product as the best it can be, because
absolutely
I use it. This is the weird thing, is that people who know me have met me from some of our greatest ambassadors met me all the way back when we first launched at the NEC or the various bike shows, and they've just stuck with us because they rely on the service, and actually of late, get the message of getting, wow, this thing's we threw in a lot of money and a resource and time. And it's we're still really only scratching the surface of where we want to try and get it to be. But so there's some really cool stuff coming. The follow route thing, I'm dead excited because we want to get people that used to work with us and go out and, you know, those routes. It's great if you want to go and find somewhere in the lakes, unless you kind of go, well, where do you go to find out the best routes? You know, do you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of creating that whole system of being able to do that. And if you're new to it, then use the safety system. You know, do you know, it's kind of, you don't have to. And the follow route's going to be free, by the way. I didn't mention that, did I? The follow route feature is going to be free as well. So we're all about free stuff.
It's like you said, safety is not sexy, is it? But if you can wrap up the safety element of the crash detection amongst like already what sound like really quite useful and at the risk of sounding old, quite fun ways of using the app, you know, it's automatic. You're gonna bring in that safety market with it. I think, aren't you?
We're all about, do you know what? All about fun. I've been a massive road safety advocate for a long time. I think the proudest moment, we won the European Satellite Navigation Competition Award, which is a mouthful every time I try to say that. But sat in Berlin, we won the UK round and the European, we were up against like so many countries. It was crazy. We came second only because this university had come up with this idea of this drone-based system for people crossing rivers, seas illegally. I'm not going to mention the word because it'll be a meltdown. And we thought, great idea. It was purely concept. And I was like, well, but how would these people who were traveling illegally get your system anyway? So the drone could, it was bonkers. It was like, it doesn't even make sense, but in principle, great, you know. And we were sat there, we took second place. And it was probably,
but like his Murphy's, he's not bitter.
It's been proudest moment. You know, I stood there on stage with this thing and thinking, because the idea of taking the satellite data and doing what we were doing with it in its entirety, you know, direction of travel, confidence levels, to be able to get a location of somebody in the hands of a paramedic as within milliseconds, so they can respond to it, knowing all the information. We were just blown away by it. We were like, it's just what it is, you know, because you become the sort of what's the word? You're kind of so used to what it does.
Blasé.
You don't, to a certain extent, you don't, I think, fully appreciate what we've got as a piece of technology and all the systems and things we have in place, because you could become complacent because it does what it does. It does what it does. So I think that was I was really proud of that, and we won an Edison in New York as well, which is equally proud of, because they just recognised that in the health and safety and innovation, that kind of what we were doing was great, and it's lovely to kind of get things like that. But it comes down to when I get on my bike and I go off and test and go up to Yorkshire and places like that. It's that whole. I know my wife and kids worry. I worry about my son now because he rides to work, and you do. And you can't get away from that. But I don't, I don't get on the bike and go, today, because you don't. But you put it on, it's part of you getting your kit on, switch it on, bang, and away. And you just don't think about it. But the people have been with us since day one, rely on it so much that they don't want to ride without it. We did some stuff with we've been supporting blood bikers in Australia. I keep inviting me out for a ride. I mean, come on, guys, how be realistic,
I'll just pop over for the afternoon.
I'll be there in about 2 days, but it's doing something over there to kind of support these guys, because over there it's very different to the blood bikers over here, because they don't get any kind of funding, and it's changing in Australia. And Peter Davies, who's created it, lovely guy, absolutely brilliant guy, and he's building this big team of volunteers out there. The guy that used our app for the first time in April, after I'd had my crash in February, which I don't really like to talk about, he used it for the first time and got wiped out. Big crash, and an ambulance was there within 10 minutes.
Wow.
And it was like, we got a testimonial from them. I'm trying to get him to do a video testimonial, but I think he's a bit shy. But he gave us like a 5-star review, and it was incredible. And we're kind of legendary over there now because obviously one of their own's being protected by a piece of tech, and it's little things like that you hear and you think, wow, it's quite rare. I mean, it goes off for people to crash and they stop it, and like for me when I fell off earlier in the year, because you have those systems in place if you don't need an ambulance. There's no point in getting an ambulance if you're okay. So really, what we're protecting against is those, you come around a bend, you hit something, your bike's gone one way, you go another way. A bit like the Connor Cummins. You remember the Connor Cummins TT crash?
Yeah.
We based a lot of the time within the technology and what it does to wait for a crash to end. We based it on Connor's crash because that was a very classic example of coming around. Okay, there was a helicopter following him, but if you come around that bend, you can see where the bike and where he went, and nobody would have known that there'd been a rider leave the road. And we based that on a lot of how we kind of set our systems up. And it's one of those things that's the kind of fear, but it's all the stuff that goes on around that to make it not go off accidentally, and when it does go off, right, what can we do to get that data into the hands of the emergency services as fast as we can? And that's the bit we're kind of quite proud of, because it's phenomenally fast.
Sorry to interrupt, folks. I will be quick. It is sponsor shout-out time. We are sponsored, as always, by Ultimate Add-ons. Bit of a blurb to read out for them. Ultimate Add-ons are the premium manufacturer of mobile phone and action camera mounting solutions for motorcycles, with a kit for any bike and a proven track record of creating products that keep your devices safe, secure, and easily accessible. The Ultimate Add-ons product range is ideal for any rider, from the commuter to the round-the-world adventurer. Why shell out on an expensive GPS system when you could use your smartphone, keeping it charged and within easy reach to take photos of your travels at the same time? Ultimate Add-ons waterproof, shockproof and dustproof tough cases are available for all flagship smartphone models and are designed by riders for riders. Find out why Ride Magazine gives Ultimate Add-ons their coveted Best Buy certification. Keep riding this winter with Ultimate Add-ons. It's all about the journey. Now, folks, if you head to ultimateaddons.com and use the code TeapotOne10, you'll get 10% off. I've got an affiliate link for them as well, which I'll leave down below. So if you listen to the podcast, check out the show notes. If you're watching the vid, have a look at the vid description. And obviously with the affiliate, I also make a slight commission off that. Costs you nothing more. So a massive thanks to Ultimate Add-ons. We are also sponsored by, as always, the Influencer Store. Influencer Store handle all my merch. You can see up there, I've got loads of hats, there's hoodies, there's all sorts of things. So if you head to TeapotOne.com, head to the shop, you can check out all the merchandise, and that is all handled by the folks over at the Influencer Store. The Influencer Store helps you build your brand, big or small, providing you with a solution and apparel. We help you to increase your fan base while supporting you with starting your own influencer clothing line with nothing more than just an idea or design, and there are no hidden costs. For more info, come check us out at theinfluencerstore.co.uk or drop us an email at online@influencerstore.co.uk for more information. Again, there'll be links down below, folks. Lastly, a big shout out to all of you over in the clan, over on Patreon. As always, folks, I keep saying this, but it is true. I literally could not do this full time without your support over there. So a huge, heartfelt thank you from me. If you'd like to go that extra mile and help support both the podcast and the main TeapotOne vid channel, then head to patreon.com/TeapotOne. Again, links down below. A massive thanks to each and every one of you who's listening or watching the podcast. I love doing the podcast. I really do. And I love getting all the feedback from you, from all the various different guests that we've had. If you could be so kind, on whatever platform it is that you're listening or watching the podcast, if you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify in particular, you can rate the podcast on there. Obviously, a 5-star rating goes a long way to help boost the podcast up through the ranks. And if you're watching the video, just give it a like, give it a comment, and both video and audio. If you share that with everyone that you think might be interested, that would be a massive help. All right, folks, let's get back to it. Right. I think it's about time we address some questions, because I had a quick look through some of the questions, particularly the Patreon ones, and there's some fairly technically focused questions within there. There's some total random ones as well, but there's some fairly technical ones which I wouldn't have thought of. So how about we fire in there and see where that takes us?
Go for it.
Awesome. Right. So this is over to the clan over on patreon.com/TeapotOne. First one, Brett Cunningham. One question. When working out the forces needed to set off the app, did you personally test it on a bike, or was it all done in a lab on dummies? Well, you can mention your crash now, finally.
We use Nissan's test track a lot in the early days, and we crashed a lot of phones, and we wrapped the phones up to prevent damage, so we had bubble wrap. And we had these things hitting what were
really technical bubble wrap with gaffer tape.
Bubble wrap. But it's kind of, phones are expensive, So we did so many like live tests, and what you do is you look at the data and you look at what the rate was in terms of above the threshold. We knew what was possible, so that was trying to find a common threshold that it's physically impossible unless the phones. Because when you, I'm not going to tell people about working out, but when you do this and you understand the physics and around it, is what's not normal, and then it's all about finding a level that is going to capture what you need it to capture. So we're looking at the higher end crashes, not your kind of 20 mile, 30 mile an hour, unless somebody hits you at doing 70. So you're looking at the higher speed crashes. I say high speed, I was probably doing about 39 thereabouts when I fell off. I'll come back to that one. So yes, a lot of crashing of phones in lots of different scenarios. And the test track was brilliant because it was a controlled environment. We could get up to speed. We were getting up to 90, 100, and letting phones go. You didn't really, once you get over a certain speed, that's enough, because it's gonna do what it needs to do. If you've already set it at a threshold of, say, I don't know, 40 mile an hour,
there's no point of going
anything
higher.
above that. There's not. There's literally not. It's physics. But yes, we did a lot of on road, and then you start doing things like testing it in lots of different weird ways in terms of vibration from the bike and all of that. And there's a lot of science goes behind it, but hours and hours and I would say probably thousands of miles, probably more actually, over the years. But very scientific. And yes, we were going to try and get a dummy with a phone in the pocket. I thought we couldn't get hold of a mannequin at the time. We just thought it would be quite funny to film it, but no. I remember my son, I will tell this story. He had some very rigid cardboard, and he was stood at the side of the road environment, and we threw this phone at him to represent you'd come off your bike and you'd hit a wall. He didn't like that. He didn't like that at all. Well, you have to kind of bounce along the road, all those kind of things, and you look at the data and you build around that. That answers that one, I think.
So you couldn't find the crash test dummy, and you thought you would kindly volunteer. So come on, what's this crash all about?
Oh, right. Yeah. And I kind of wrote a little bit of a thing afterwards about it, because we'd been up the hills on the Sunday morning, and I was tired. We'd go for a walk and that. And it was a late Sunday afternoon, and my son-in-law lives on the corner. He's also got a bike. Son-in-law B at the moment. And I'm like, come on, Dad, come on, let's go and do the Hazelby twisties that are around near us from back of Teesside Airport to Yarm. I was like, oh, God, I can't be bothered. Oh, are we then? So I shouldn't have gone out. I was tired. It's one of those things, isn't it? If you're not feeling it, you shouldn't really do it. And I was coming around a bend where MSG Bike Gear is, actually, because we do this road loads. I know the road like the back of my hand. And there's this one piece of road where you can't see what's coming around it. And it's not very wide. It's hedge road. You couldn't see. It was February, but it was so thick you couldn't see. And anyway, I was coming around the corner. Probably, I normally take a defensive line and so I can see around it. I was wanting to get home. I was tired. So it was probably more to the centre of the road, if I'm being honest. And his car, literally, talk about bad timing, the car just appeared. And And your training and your instinct is, I'm not going to hit that. So the only way was the ditch. So I ended up like going into this ditch and went down, and there was water in the ditch, and I hit the ground, and the bike was literally laid sort of, because I was still on it. I was like over on my side. And I just remember, it's like, you're falling off. I hit it really quite hard. I remember thinking, oh, crikey, I hope the engine casings haven't, because then the boxer engine, I was thinking, oh, and there was like steam. Yeah, there was steam coming out, all that kind of thing. And I was laid there, and then they came on the corner, came on comms going, oh God, what have you done? I remember opening my visor and looking, and I was dazed and thinking, I looked, and my wing mirror was gone. You're thinking, have I broke anything? Anyway, I'm laid there, so my Apple Watch starts pulsating with the crash detection notification from RealRider, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I hear it through the headset saying, crash detected, your crash alert will be sent. And I'm like, oh my goodness, right? So never mind, am I okay? Pulls me phone out, right? Cancel the alert because it was now on screen saying, do you need it's counting down. No, don't need an ambulance, right? And I started taking pictures. I mean, come on.
The influencer took over.
Tom and my son and Dean were like, what are you doing? I was like, this is brilliant. I was that excited that actually then I'm laid there and the tech has gone off, and I'm like, do we just all go and let me an ambulance turn? And the other, no, I can't do that because I'm okay. And it was knowing that it's going to go off anyway, but when it does and you're laid there and you're thinking, bloody hell.
It
so
works.
Here's me trying to I was taking pictures and I was doing a bit of video and all this kind of thing while they were trying to get it out of the ditch.
Get your bike out,
What I didn't realise, I didn't tell them, they were still in fourth gear and they were trying to push it out without pump clutching. Do I wait?
Every day's a school day, Andrew. They've got to learn these things.
I know. They got it out of the ditch, and I had to ride it home without the wing mirror because fortunately the boxer engines, I mean, they're brilliant. It was soft ground, and I made a nice big hole. I didn't make the hole; the bike did, honestly. And I got back on it, and it was really weird because they're like, "Are you okay?" And I was in shock, and I was a bit bruised. And I remember riding back along. There was no wing mirror. When you're used to the wing mirror, I was just going, this is weird. Yeah. And I had to get it home. I got home and cleaned the bike first, and I had to go and get it in the bath. I was like, it's starting to ache then, But I was just like, I was dead kind of excited. It was a weird kind of feeling of, oh my goodness, I'm actually the crash test and dummy, finally, put myself in that situation. But interestingly, so the Apple Watch didn't go off. And the iPhone 14 Pro, which was in my pocket, didn't go off as well. And it's kind of one of those things that people often say, well, my watch does this, my phone does that. Yeah, but we're a specifically tailored system for motorcycling that's been built over years to detect motorcycle crashes. And, and I think watches can't capture everything. Certainly our system can't capture absolutely everything because you can't. You might be going too slow. But I think it was a really interesting thing that some of the people said was, I've got my watch does that. Well, okay. And we send a lot of motorcycle information because we built it with emergency services. But we also have that period of time to make sure that we're not going to send something that we don't need to. And that's the difference between a system that's been built with emergency services. And you think about how best to do that rather than bang, just flood 911, particularly the big problem in the States. There was a big article in the Times, I think, where it was going off, watches were going off on a ski slope. So there's all of those kind of things. We get people just not really appreciating the technology that's within the system and all the safeguards and everything else,
Yeah. Now, that's something which we're going to have to elaborate on because I know from pre-reading a couple of these questions just before we started. In fact, I think the next one speaks about this. The impact on the emergency service, and the other one is, does my watch not do this already? Yeah. So they come up in the questions. Next one, cheers, Brett. Thank you very much for that question, pal. Next one's Chris Maggs. He says, hello, Andrew. The concept is excellent, but I do have some concern with regard to the likelihood of our under-resourced emergency services in the UK actually responding to an emergency message. In particular, if I crash crashed and was unable to verbally confirm with the operator that I required assistance. Interestingly, in the sales publicity for these type of apps, I've yet to see any official agreement or statement from the emergency services as to their intent to respond to these apps. If you could provide me confidence in that, if you could provide me confidence in that, count me in. It's a great idea, as I often ride solo. Also, can you discuss examples where your app has assisted in an accident? Right. Well, there's a couple of points. A few of them we've already discussed. But yeah, so if you as the rider, I think you already addressed this right near the start. So you're the rider, you have the app, you crash, or it detects that there's been a crash. You said there's a countdown system. Is that correct?
So there's a number of things. Initially, what we're going to be doing, we're monitoring the phone sensors. We're monitoring motion and fitness. We're monitoring GPS. So we've got to understand if this has been. We talk about the edge cases. That has it actually been a crash? So the system might think it's been a crash. If you're not moving, it's just like a traffic light system. It then escalates to, okay, gotcha. You're not moving. We've now got a countdown. You're going to get notification every second. You get alarm and all that kind of thing. And that's for you to interact with that to say, actually, if you can, I'm okay. Yeah, because every crash is different. We don't know what the circumstances might be. However, it follows a flow in a system. If you don't interact with it, and that be it, you're riding down the road, or you're up and walking around. We had an instance where a guy got T-boned, and he got up, he walked over to talk to the driver, and then he got in touch and said, well, I didn't get an ambulance. Yeah, but you're telling me you got up and you walked over and you had a word with the driver and you're moving around. Well, the system reset, because if you can walk around, you can call 999. He was like, I didn't realise it was that sophisticated. So there's those reasons that we have that validation, because we don't want to be a burden to the emergency services, which covers another one of these points. And you want to make sure you validate it as best you can. When it's validated and you can't interact with it, and it sends the package of data, which is very accurate, very fast, there's always going to be callbacks. So the emergency service protocol, ambulance service, when I say emergency service, people think police, fire, purely ambulance. That's the agreement we have in place. And I'll come on to where we can see the evidence that we are accredited. So the ambulance will call the phone to establish if the rider needs assistance. And the protocol is if there's no answer, then the most appropriate help will be organised. Now, what you've got to look at, and we cover this now, terms and conditions, because obviously legal and we obviously work with emergency services, that we cannot guarantee, no system in the world, Apple, Android, cannot guarantee what happens once emergency services pick that up. And it would be remiss of us to say, oh, yeah, don't worry, you'll get an ambulance. We can't say that, because every system is different, and resources might be, we can't control that. What we control and what we agreed, and why we're government approved, and we're the only system in the UK, 3 apps actually now that are government approved, the car one, Triumph SOS and RealRider, are approved to send emergency data into the BT 999 system electronically. So we're the only company that can do that. So once it's in there, we don't handle it. We don't control that. It goes to the nearest ambulance service. They take over and they find the most appropriate resource. There are films on certainly on our RealRider site, where Northeast Ambulance Service, John Rowland, talks about what they did, because they helped us create it. So they are basically saying on camera that we will arrange, the most appropriate, whether it's a paramedic or whatever it is, because they know a system that's been government approved, been tested, been validated, and all those kind of things, the likelihood is that someone needs some assistance. If the gentleman you're talking about looks at the BAPCO, the British APCO website, and looks at apps, you'll see that we're the company that was accredited. There's the app approval scheme that is on there that we helped create to protect emergency services from, this is pre-smartwatches and pre-Apple and Android doing what they were doing. This is going back to quite early days. So you can see in a website, an official website, that we're officially accredited to connect to 999. And that was the starting point for us, and we've done that equally. We fitted into Bosch across Europe and obviously North America. And the reason we did that, it was easy because we're trusted, we're accredited. Over, decade now, we haven't caused any burden to the emergency service. In fact, Bosch were quite surprised that they weren't receiving anything from the car thing. As eCall, it's your car, if you push the red button or if your car crashes. eCall typically generates about 90% false alerts around the world. It's massive. So they're used to having systems alert all the time. And people are pushing the button or whatever, or things go off accidentally, or that obviously there are genuine crashes. But 90% of false. Ours are about 1%. So in real terms, we're not causing any problem to the emergency service whatsoever. They accept that there's a tolerance, and if we go above a certain percentage, then we then have to either be recertified or fix it. And we, the big thing about people mounting phones to the bikes, we knew it was starting to cause some problems. Although the people were saying to me, "Oh, but I keep getting this alarm. Yeah, but what are you doing with the phone? I've got it mounted on my bike, and you got a vibration. I have to know what did you do? I stopped." So you kind of understand that you've got to kind of adapt the systems. So what we did was we changed the processes for validation. We made them a lot tighter because they've never been. We didn't need to change it because people had their phones in their pockets, and the vibration dampener of the body was fine. So it's kind of one of those things that it changes and evolves as technology evolves, and you're always looking at it. You're always testing. I'm always testing it. You're always looking at thresholds. But you can check us out online. You can look at. In fact, if you go to RealSafeTechnologies.com, you can see the background in terms of all the stages we went through, what we do as a core company, who we work with, some of the projects we've been involved in. And then you've got RealRider, which is obviously the end product. Triumph SOS is another version of RealRider, which we did with Triumph, which people probably don't know about. So hopefully
I didn't actually till you mentioned that. Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't aware of that.
We went with Triumph for years. We originally were going to plug in, but then COVID kind of destroyed everything. But we don't talk about COVID anymore. So but there you go. That should answer in terms of systems in place to minimise false activations. We're not a burden to the NHS because we're 1% or thereabouts, as opposed to eCall, which is 90%. Officially accredited, you can see that on the Batco website, or take a look at RealSafeTechnologies.com, and you can see who we are as a company and what we do.
And we've already discussed a variety of different examples where the app has actually done its job, hasn't it, and detected an accident and caused the emergency services.
We've had there was the car one, particularly in Dallas, South Carolina, where a woman had veered off the road. Another motorist had kind of caught in the mirror that she'd gone off the road, and gone into a ditch in the car, South Carolina, out in the countryside. So basically what happened is the dash camera in our system within their app had done all the things it needs to do. The dash camera is great because it's mounted to the car, it gets the crash impulse triggers, and our system within their app validates and sends in the alert. Now I get the alert in terms of coordinates within milliseconds of it hitting our infrastructure. So I straight away, it was a Saturday tea time. I opened up and went, what? And I can see exactly where the car or the camera was, and it was in a ditch on Google. I went on the Google Earth and looked at it, and I thought, bloody hell. So literally, it was Saturday afternoon. I received that. 45 seconds later, I received a report from Northern 911, who are based in Canada, cover the whole of the US. Because they're not covered by GDPR in the sense over there, but this lady's crashed. It had vehicle details, coordinates, ambulance, 911 ambulance has been instructed. I was like, wow, okay, 42 seconds later, that's how fast it was.
God.
I then got a follow-up to say that apparently what had happened is 911 dispatch near South Carolina had received a 911 call from the motorist that said, I think somebody just gone off the road.
Yeah.
What we were able to do is when you looked at the mapping, you could do, because the camera, when we've done loads of testing, you can actually see that where the camera is in relation to where the car's parked. It's that accurate. You're going to have some instances where the confidence level means it's not as accurate, but generally speaking, you know where the car is when you're testing it. So this lady had gone in this kind of little like an embankment thing, and they found her. and literally knew all about it. And ambulance was dispatched to it, and they've since tried to get hold of her to see if she wanted to do something, and I don't think she's kind of But we have things like that happen. It is quite rare. But when it does happen, it happens like the guy in Australia, and like my own crash. It's built to do it as fast as possible. We are going to be doing satellite connectivity, which is kind of probably the last thing. Hopefully somebody's going to ask about network connection, but
I think they do actually.
Great, excellent, bring it on.
if they don't, we'll come back to it. Network connection. Just thinking about examples there. We had one in the UK. Obviously, sadly, it didn't involve RealRider Systems, sadly, because it would have saved their lives. But there was something a couple of years ago up in Scotland where somebody phoned 999 and said, I've just seen a car come off like the motorway, dual carriageway, whatever it was. So that incident was logged in the 999 room. It was at a change of shift because there's been an inquiry involved in this, and I know some of the details because a mate of mine took over the next. He took over the next shift, sort of supervising it, and this is how it all came to par. So there was an incident. I believe somebody was filling in for somebody. It wasn't a normal job as the 999 operator. They took the call. I think the systems were down at the time, so it wasn't logged on a computer. It was on a bit of paper. There's a change of staff. They've come in. They've not noticed this bit of paper because nobody's free to be allocated to that call as yet. And it just got lost in the ether. As you said yourself, there's hundreds of thousands of 999 calls in the UK every day. So it just got lost into the ether. However, I think the next change of shift, like 24 hours later, I believe there was somebody put a call in saying, I've not seen such and such. They're missing persons. Some inquiries have gone in, something along those lines, and then this call about a car coming off the road has come to fore. They've sent people there, but it's now 24, 48 hours later. They eventually find a car, and the people have passed that are inside it. Something like that had RealRider activated.
Well, we had one in Glasgow, actually. Was another one, a car. There was a big crash. And our alert went in to the Scottish Ambulance Service, and I remember we did get follow-up to say that actually they'd got it, and it was late at night, and a car had hit something. I don't know what it hit, and they got it. They got it before people started ringing 999, because then. And actually, I was in Germany at the time on one of these projects of certification for rider-based systems. And I remember getting it and thinking, blow my neck, that's like, and you could then see on Google Maps where the traffic was building up because it was amazing. And when I say amazing, to see that the system had done what it needed to do. And the 999 operator had said, we've now started receiving calls about the incident that you sent us about this car crashing. And the thing about things like that, we don't really work with the highways agencies or national highways, as they keep rebranding, is that, stuff like that we can alert is about how that then gets used to put the signs up saying there's been a crash. There's so much that
tying it into the existing systems.
So much that could work, and the way that we also go to the next generation, the 999 next gen meetings in London. So we still work with BT and everybody else, and we go along and say, well, this is what we would love to be able to do, and it's like white papers now being created based on the next level, the next generation of emergency services, of things like utilising smartwatch data, utilising Internet of Things, connected devices, and changing the emergency services interface to be able to ingest that information to enhance situational awareness. Because there's so much that could be done right now, but you've got to remember the emergency system is still quite old and still antiquated, so they are kind of updating it. So one of the things that we would love to see is that, your vitals are sent through where we can send information. We can relay loads of information. Like for the car crash, for example, we could actually send the 30-second prior to the crash because it's forward facing, and you could then, if there was say there was a lorry on fire or something, there's things like that can be done, but they're just not ready for it. And that's frustrating for us as technology developers, is that there's so much more that we could be doing to kind of paint a picture of what's going on at the crash scene, but they're just not ready. But things are changing, and it's actually quite exciting. But we've got loads, I think, over the years of examples where things have happened that you just know, like, when I say it and I look at the location, like, yeah, someone's left the road or whatever.
Yeah.
But we're not told, we're not allowed to get told, which is the frustrating thing is. So I can't sit here and say, well, of all the alerts we've had, unless they get in touch, and we have the people get in touch, and it's like the Australians, that was crazy, that. So it's very difficult to kind of put a quantum on it, Well, I would probably say, other than, well, I managed to fall off myself, and it could have been different. So it's subjective, isn't it? It's kind of, look, tech does what it does. Emergency services know what to expect. In fact, I remember getting a call and saying, "Are you guys still?" Yeah. So we've not had anything for ages. That's good. Yeah. I mean, somebody hasn't crashed,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, I think at the very least, mate, check out the RealRider website and have a look at the information for yourself, because sounds like we've answered all your questions there. I'll leave all the links down below.
Good.
Mike Whiting, hi all. Sorry guys, this is the first time I've heard of your app. I have what I am led to believe is a similar emergency system through Google on my Pixel phone. Can you explain the differences, if any, on the emergency response side of your app?
So, well, that comes down to my own experience of technology that's supposed to have impact detection that didn't go off. And then, bearing in mind, I got the latest iPhone 14 Pro and the Apple Watch Series 8 with crash detection that didn't go off. So it's one of those things, isn't it? It's kind of, do you rely on systems that are meant to capture certain crashes? And they'll all say, Apple and Google are saying that they can't detect all crashes. And we've got to say that because you don't know. Or do you want something that's been built and government approved, certified and refined, and is constantly evolving to deliver as much information the emergency services want that will help with the rescue? And that's the difference between what we've done and we do and we continue to develop, as opposed to a phone manufacturer. I'm not saying that's bad, it's great, because all these things help to validate and deliver additional information to the emergency service. Hang on, there's a phone gone off. So it's good. Particularly when we're doing the car, this is quite an interesting fact, actually. One on the projects we're working with in Europe is that the emergency service would rather have, like, say, for example, someone's got e-call in the car, but has got a dash camera as well, as using both systems, is that additional information absolutely helps validate that there's been a crash. So it's not, I don't know what the answer is a question other than I use our system, I rely on it because I know what it's been built for. And the sensitivity around motorcycle crashes is a very specific thing, whereas all the phone manufacturers have just done a standard, there's a system, there's some technology. And what we know from emergency services around the world is it's been causing an absolute nightmare. We were at Kendall Calling recently, and he's a perfect example. The little chairs where you can put like a can of beer in. Yeah. So we'd pushed our phones.
I am familiar with them, Andrew. Yes.
Are you? Good. I thought, just for the audience, and so we pushed our phones in and actually got up to whatever it was, and it started alerting, because if you push and hold on the iPhone, particularly on the buttons, so there you go. So then it starts alerting emergency services, because you put it in. So there's lots of things that is great about this technology, but also the reason why 911 and 999 and 112, if you search in any of the kind of backdoor things, they've had like conferences in America calling for Apple and Google to rethink what they're doing. And you can look at it, it's in the public domain. Android particularly been having a nightmare, flooding the emergency services with false alerts. Apple Watch particularly been a nightmare in the States. So there was a big article in the New York Times that the watch was saying that skiers were dead, and they weren't. They kept going off. There was a theme park that was going off all the time. So, technology is there to keep you safe. What we do, what we have done, and the system and processes that we have in place, and the validation is very, very important. And I know I rely on it, and a lot of people that satisfied with relying it because it's doing the kind of right thing. That's not to say that your phones and smartwatches don't. So it's a difficult one. You know, yeah, fine. Use your Google Pixel or whatever phone it is, but our system tailored to us as riders, and that's all of it I can kind of say on that, and my own experience of a crash when those systems didn't go off.
Yeah. I think you validate it in everything that we've discussed so far. Fentour Martin, he actually asks the same thing. Actually, he says, "Sounds a brilliant idea. How does it compare to the crash detection I've turned on with my Apple Watch Ultra?" Well, obviously that's what you had, and it neither that or your iPhone detected the crash that you were involved in.
No, and the information that we send, bearing in mind that Apple and Google did not consult with the emergency service. I know that because I work with the 999 Liaison Committee, which is a government department that's made up of all the emergency services, Coast Guard, everybody. So, you know, we feed into that and we go to these roundtables and you know, they are now starting to talk a bit more. But Apple was very, very blasé in terms of, well, we've developed this amazing system right there, and we'll just connect it to 911 and 911. Well, hang on a minute, you know, and then you start to see all this false stuff come through. But they haven't gone through what we've gone through. They haven't gone through and said, well, actually, let's put some systems in place to prevent. They're a phone manufacturer. They're like, oh, we created this new thing. I think what was really annoying when they first created their crash detection system, I was like, hang on, you haven't just invented this. You know, I'll give you this a decade ago. You know what I mean? And they're very, very good at what they do. And at the end of the day, if my watch does go off and my app goes off, then that's great. Because I don't use my watch for crash detection. I use it for fitness and everything else. And so I'm of a view of, well, we're going to send much more detailed information, which is useful to emergency services. I'm going to validate as much as I can because I'm not going to send anything false. But if it does, and then my app does, then great. I've got two pieces of information. Great. You know, it's down to choice. And obviously, from my perspective, having done it, you know, and used it all the years, and the friends used, and all the kind of, you know, the case studies we've had, it's use it or don't use it. You know, it's it's one of those questions, isn't it? But like, too much isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think validation comes up all the time here, doesn't it? It's the fact that your app in particular, it's not just saying there's been an incident, go and deal with it. It's like, it's been an incident. Here's some GPS information showing before and now, as you said, showing direction of travel. It seems to take in lots and lots and lots of bits of data before it makes that decision to then alert the emergency services, and you're building up the reputation with them so that this is trusted info.
The thing is, we have done over a decade, and this is again that people don't think. I'm not surprised people haven't heard of us. We have been around for a decade in terms of live, but the trust that we have, and we got plugged into. I mean, Japan was, you know, Japan. We're the first aftermarket system to go into Japan of its type because we're trusted. And the data, I mean, the guy, you know, when I fly into Barcelona to the operations center, there's one in Manila that deal with all the alerts from like Audi and everywhere else. These guys, they deal with all that data. They're like, we don't get anything from you guys, you know. And I showed them the millions and millions, but there's about 80 million miles worth of journeys being protected by our technology just in car, because you can see that that's been going since 2019 with the car company. So
wow.
So when we went into Japan, the regulations they have for connecting to the emergency service is actually quite hard. It's quite regulated. And they were like, no, fine, not got a problem with this. You've demonstrated, you know, you're not like eCall. You demonstrated that you're a trusted service, and that's the difference. So crash detection is one thing, but we spent probably more time and energy and resources and R&D around what happens afterwards, because we made a promise to the emergency service when we first started, is that we'll make sure we minimize. And if we don't, we could be turned off, because we have to, unlike Apple, I don't care, or Google, And I'm not anti-Apple. I love Apple. I'm an Apple fan. But there's a difference between what we have to do as a company, a responsible company, to ensure that we don't flood burn services with trust. And that's the difference of validation. And then to get an agreement that there's a call made as well to the provider. One of the things that we really want to be able to do with this whole next gen that I've talked about is to update. Can you imagine, can't you, that you're laid there and we're sending location and we're sending vital information, so you've got a patient here, understand what's going on with them, and then you're getting information from the Apple Watch. That's where I see us using things like watch technology,
heart rate, all that sort of stuff.
Yes, absolutely. That's the vision that we have. It just can't be implemented at the moment, but our cloud infrastructure is capable of taking that and sending that data.
And of course, there's all the privacy details, intricacies that are involved around that, aren't there? It's like the big brother side of things. It's fantastic when it's used for that purpose, but I'm sure if you were, I suppose you already allow Apple and your watch, or Google and whatever watch it is that they have, Garmin watches. I suppose you're already clicking that box and saying, yes, I agree to share my bodily information via the watch, aren't you? I suppose when you use it, when you start using all that stuff.
We are very heavily bound by GDPR. When we had agreements in place around data sensitivity. That was way before we were doing it, way before GDPR actually came out. But we would send the emergency data transiently from our system, so we don't take a record of it, and also we don't store any of the medical information other than on the device on your phone. So we took privacy very important before privacy became an absolute animal for the likes of your handset, which is a good thing. I don't disagree with it, but we were already adhering to sensitive data and handling of that, and had our lawyers involved in terms of the terms and conditions and everything else. So we've been doing that for a decade anyway. It just means that there's greater protection. So things like the watch data would be still sent through the same. It's BT. It's their encrypted emergency system, of which we would just send that data transiently. So it's kind of never going to be something that we'd sit and go, "Oh, that person's got certain," because we don't see it. It's always been built that way. So when GDPR, you know what I mean, when that came out, our lawyers went, "Well, you already do it," So for us, it was more of a tick box exercise.
Nice, right, Mike Martin. I hope that's answered your questions there, pal, or gents. Next one, Craig Western. Hi all, hope you're well and not heard of this app, but we'll look into it now. My question is, as we all know, or think we know, is that at some time AI will become self-aware. But when it does, will it communicate in a male or female voice? What do you think?
I'm a bit scared by AI, to be fair. I'm a big fan of the Terminator films, and I'm old enough to remember the first one, and they're going to become self-aware. And I think AI is a good thing in a sense, but also I think it scares the life out of me. It's absolutely. I'm concerned. Personally, this is me personally speaking. As opposed to which I don't know. I wouldn't like to comment because however way I go.
It's going to be female. It's going to be female voice. Absolutely.
I'll agree with that. Yeah.
A female voice is less threatening in most instances. I just think it plays easier with the majority. A female voice, I think, personally. And every movie where there's a bad AI, it's always a female voice, isn't it? It's always. It does scare me. I think technology is a fantastic thing, but I think there needs to be an off switch. There needs to be an override. And we're hitting that point, if we've not already gone by it, where there isn't. So
yeah, I know. Which is why we allow people to turn our system off. You say,
you like it. So he just lined you up there for that one. Lovely.
Thank you for that
one. Cheers for that one, Craig. Next one, Louise Worsfold. Evening all. Without disclosing too much detail, what's the weirdest account name you've come across? And do you often wonder what incident has inspired it? Do you get to see like user account names and stuff?
No, Not really. Again, I know. It's a really good, because in the early days, I had an event, I saw somebody typing in something and it was a bit weird, but I can't remember. I remember seeing something going, okay, that's a bit weird. But no, we don't. I really want to be able to answer that, but it was something a bit quirky, but no, we just don't see it. Again, GDPR means that we don't get to see that information, which is probably a bit annoying. Everyone's really sensible, to be honest. Like, we've had rude words, but
you see it on social media, though, don't you? People's tags and usernames and stuff. Maybe not so much now, because I think people are much more aware of it. But for us, for our generation, when social media really came in, and God, what was that? Was it 2008, 2009? Facebook really picked up. Yeah,
because we that project that Handle Lose It was 2003 when we launched that, and that was, we were getting posts from people, which technically was a bit like a social. I'd like to say it was a bit like a social network in a very, very crude sense of the word. But yeah, it was 2008, 2009, I think, somewhere around that.
Yeah, because I remember I started uni in 1993, and I remember turning up at uni and them having email, and it being fairly new at uni. And I remember, like, what's email? And there was a browser for the internet, and I genuinely didn't know anything about the internet. I remember turning up at uni and going, what? And it was all dial-up. Remember, it was so slow. It took ages to connect. I remember all that. And do you remember MySpace and all these sort of things?
I'm older than you think, I'm older than you think. I remember having to go to the telephone box, back in the day, and how to get the little lock off the old dial phones like that. That was my childhood.
Totally. And if you had a phone at home, there was like one phone. It was often ours was in the kitchen, so you had to sit there and talk to either your girlfriend or whoever it was in the kitchen while everyone else is listening on a big phone.
Getting peeled.
Yeah, exactly. God, we're old. It's not that long ago, though, man, is it? It's like the 90s, early 90s.
Scary thing. I know.
Wow. Anyway, right. Cheers, Louise. Next one, Charlie Callard. Evening all. Hope you're all fitting well. Well, I'm well, Charlie. I'm well.
Good.
like many, not like Andrew. Andrew was at the gym there. That we were supposed to do this on Wednesday night, weren't we? Was it Wednesday night?
Yeah, my wife still made me go to the gym, because when you let me know, and I was like, oh, okay. You thought I was going to get let off. No, she made me work twice as hard because I made her late. And I've been tonight as well, so,
Oof, you put me to shame. Shush. Charlie says, like many, I've not heard of the app till now, and I'll certainly be checking it out. So a couple of questions. Where would you like to see RealRider in 5 to 10 years? I've seen prototype helmets with head-up displays for GPS and such. Is that a possible direction for you guys? My second question, we'll cover the second question once we've answered this. So, future of RealRider in 5 to 10 years.
The future of our technology, because our technology is technology that's currently being looked at for putting into other apps. Because there's two ways to answer that question. So, RealRider is one of our products. Triumph SOS is one of our products. The car system that can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah. Are you getting a low power warning on your
AirPods?
Yeah, I did as well.
So the system that we plug into there is we do lots of things. So I think that where we see the future for what I think our core technology as a company is it being plugged into more apps. So for example, people, you look at Kelly-Motor, I would love to be able to offer those guys any of the systems out there.
It just seems such a good fit between you two. It really does.
I know. Talking to some of the big manufacturers, we're in talks with some manufacturers. I'm not allowed to obviously say under NDA. There's interest in taking our tech. I think. So the core technology is about where we advance the kind of additional data we can send. So I mentioned vitals, I mentioned situational awareness, certainly in the car thing video. As those systems begin to evolve and come online and services get better, then we're already ready. And that's the nice thing about future-proofing what we've done as an infrastructure and spending a lot of money on that, is that I want to be able to be that person laid in a ditch, and the emergency services in real time can see what's happening to me and know from a watch. Because most people are like getting watches now, or all the phones delivering more information, more up-to-date information, and some of the satellite stuff that we've got lined up, which again closes another little hole, which is a worry. It's always been a worry for me. So we see us just really evolving what we do and refining what we do and getting better at it. But we can't unless the emergency services catch up. So I would like to, and the second answer to that is I like it to our technology to be in as many different apps as possible. I'd love to do equestrian, we'd love to do cycling and all those kind of things because it's there and it can be used. I always get asked those questions, but have you tried talking to Strava? They just don't answer your calls, you know?
Right.
But,
yeah.
What was the second question?
Second question, he's raised a good point. Excuse me. Saying there about head-up displays for GPS. Well, this company here, who are Tillsburg,
nice.
I've seen them on the social media, and I dropped them a line just to say, because they were advertising that they're now working with Moto, and it's basically it's a, you see that thing there?
Yeah.
It's a thing that clips in the top of your lid, and it's a little perspex bit of plastic that drops down here, and that then gives you head-up display with GPS information, like route navigation information. So I dropped them a line and just, my phone talking to me. Sorry about that. Sorry, my watch talking to me. So I dropped them a line and just said, look, I do a lot of work with Moto. I'd love to test it out. So they sent me one. So Charlie, I'm going to be doing some work on that actually, and I'll do a little review vid on it. So it was interesting to see that in your question. His second question. Sorry, go on. If you've got a point there.
No. We've been talking to we're talking to helmet manufacturers. We're talking to a lot. I mean, we've been very aware of what's come on the market and what's coming on the market, and we always like to talk to those people because there's natural synergy. If they're going to try and create something, don't create something. Just take all the experience that we've had and we'll just plug it in and license it. You know, because creating it is one thing. Getting the agreement to connect to 999 or 911 is a challenge.
Yes.
And the worry is because in the climate that we've had with all the false alerting is that they're very mistrustful of technology. So the good thing about, even though when we launched, nobody knew really whether it would work in terms of, well, I don't really think the smartphone can do that. Well, it can. We're now in a situation where people do believe it. So we've seen adoption for our technology now actually increase because there's more awareness of what phones can do, which is good.
Yes.
But us starting all those years ago meant that we became the trusted, you know, we get pulled into these European projects because we know we've been there, we've done it kind of. So there's advantages and disadvantages. We've been the first mover, if you like, to market. So we're very aware of what's coming online and what's coming out. And we're trying to talk to as many of these organizations as possible. One that I would love to be able to talk about that we could probably do with these guys would be phenomenal. But I'm not allowed to talk about. But if they can pull it off and if we can do it, it's a game changer. I'm dead excited about it. But
there's, with the advent of electric, I'm still not convinced electric motorcycles are going to be a viable thing, to be perfectly honest. But with the advent of electric, we're seeing the advent of haptic suits, clothing, and surely something like integrating your app within the clothing.
Absolutely.
Imagine that. Okay.
Imagine that.
Say no more.
We need a pint offline, and I'll tell you.
No dramas. So Charlie's second question: why is a hot dog called a hot dog? Is there something in those American-style sausages they're not telling us? Good point. Why is a hot dog called a hot dog?
They've got weird things for why they created it. I mean, it's a really very, sensible reason, but
it's not going to be sensible, is it? It's not going to be sensible. Do you know something I've never Googled? I've never actually heard an answer as to why a hot dog's called a hot dog.
I'll make a note.
Yeah. Google it, Charlie. Google it. Just your question, pal. Next one, Patrick Collum. Evening, gents. I was a RealRider subscriber when I bought a bike in 2022. I guess my question, and please feel free to go full marketing, would this, and maybe it's already happening, tie up with the data tool bike tracker? Would that be an idea? I've had 2 phone calls where my dullest Ditchwater R1250 RS had tried to be lifted. Okay, so
we did actually have. Sorry to cut across. We did actually have a partnership in place with Scorpion Automotive. and we used to integrate into the Data Tool app. I think the problem there is that the guy who I worked with at the time was very enthusiastic, and we did it, plugged it in their system. They had to market it. He then left, didn't get marketed, didn't communicate. They had, it just kind of. So we picked up when they pulled. So we integrated into their application. Great synergy. So you bang on there, but it kind of fell by the wayside because the person who originally was enthused about it left. And then it was just seen as being it's an expense, and didn't see the real value in that, which is a shame. So when they pulled it and let the customers, a lot of the customers then came over to our normal app, if you like, because it's the same technology. So yeah, we've been there, done that, and it's shame because there's massive synergy with lots of these products, because we can plug into the way our system works. We can just plug the SDK, software developer kit, into an application. It's all hooked up to our back end, and then it works independently, and we just maintain it. So we could, like Himoto and various other systems, we can just plug it. It's a plug and play. We've developed a plug and play solution. It's just getting these guys to focus on, well, hang on, do you see this as a customer benefit? Do you want to do it? And yeah, that's the other side of what I do, is primarily talking to these big organizations saying, well, why don't you take our technology and save yourself years of R&D and millions of pounds of money,
Yeah. It's interesting hearing you talk about Kalimoto. Obviously, I have quite a good established relationship with them, and it sounds like you already have contact and a relationship existing with them. But it to me, it's an amalgamation between you two would just make.
I agree.
It would make both platforms like so much more enjoyable to use, but B, versatile and likely for the end user, a biker, to pick up.
Let's I've get heard our bikes together and let's ride over and see.
Genuinely, like, I've heard of RealRider for years, but until we met at Donington, I wasn't aware really of what you did. At all. But even just having this chat, I'm like, oh yeah, I could use that. I could definitely use that. So I mean, I'm definitely going to pick it up and start using it. And I would love to maybe do some work with you. And if we can put Cali and you guys together, it's like, not me, it would be a cracking.
I think you'll find that maybe it's an open door already. I think that it probably takes someone like yourself to go, do you know? So I think we'll have that. We're gonna have so many conversations offline. We're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to come down, find a hotel, and we're gonna talk bikes and banter and everything.
Fine.
And take over the world. I like that. I like the idea of that.
I may have a trip coming up that you could be interested in. So we'll have a little chat after this. Right. Patrick's got another question. Where do you guys stand on the here we go. We chatted about this on the disclosing of data. I'm starting to become more and more aware of algorithms, more often than I'd like to admit, by lying to them so they're less accurate. Am I being a Luddite, or do I need to embrace the change? So this is kind of the big brother thing that we were chatting about.
I think. I mean, I come back to tech for good. We're big believers of tech for good. So tech that makes a big improvement to your life and makes things easier and everything else. But then there's the other kind of hang on.
There's the AI. We're both suspicious of AI.
Well, and also why do they want that piece of information, and are they tracking you and all that? So we're very, very, very acutely aware of all that. And I think the honest answer is that people always talk about speed, and I'm surprised no one's asked the question about, but you tell the police how fast we're going. Well, yeah, we don't even talk to the police. B, we don't store it. We've never been a performance-based application. Why would I? And what we do is very much protected in terms of encryption for the emergency data we send. And I'm a customer of my own technology. And this is the thing that people forget, is that, hang on a minute, we built it in a way that is safe and secure because we have to, with government guidelines and NHS compliance and all of those kind of things before GDPR came along. So we're very compliant in all those kind of things. The difference in terms of what's happening in America with their equivalent to GDPR and even in Japan now. So we satisfy all of that. Not interested in knowing. We hardly really market to people, which we could do, but we don't really need to, other than update maybe if we're bringing out something new. So we're not, as a company, we're very primarily interested in if you have an off, can we get the help as quick as we can? Yeah.
Mm.
And are we creating something that will make your group riding being a perfect thing that you control? And we still don't. There's nothing we do with that because I'm not particularly interested. Is the other thing, because I'm using it as well with all my mates. It's kind of we're building something because we see value in enriching what we do as motorcyclists. And the good thing about being in the position of the company that's there is that we can do that and try and get other people using it. So it's a funny thing is when people look at the company and what we do, it's like, wow, but we're people who ride motorbikes and are very passionate about improving what you do on a motorcycle in terms of whether it's safer or enriching you with finding the best routes or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's I'm kind of I worry about certain things in terms of what people are tracking me for. But then equally, well, I use the smartwatch. I use my phone.
Yeah,
I'm not really that bothered. Am I really that bothered? Mm-hmm. Because unless you've got something to hide, I think you just become a bit sterile to it. You're like, well, unless there's particular apps that you kind of go, well, I don't really want to tell you that information. So it's really down to common sense and a certain extent, isn't it? Well, what is the app going to do for me? What do I want to disclose, really?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the topic there where you said, do you release my speed data? I've had this about dash cams. I've had it about Kalimoto. People said, I don't want them seeing what I'm doing. And I just think to myself, you've got one of these on you.
Yeah.
That in the event of especially the old bill, bearing in mind my previous occupation.
Yeah.
If the old bill want to see where you are, at what time you are, what speed you were doing, they can access your phone and it's all there. So don't worry about an app. They're not going to bother using the app. They'll just use your phone. It's all there.
And we've never recorded it and we built it and we engineered it in a way that we didn't because we didn't need it. When we look at the GPS, every single GPS point, we look at what the speed is purely to switch the system on or off. And that's the crash detection monitoring because that's what you can read from it. We read it, we don't store it. I look, I've done my IM and everything else. I make progress. We all make progress because bikes are, I ride a 1250 RS for heaven's sake. I like to make progress. Why build something?
I didn't know you were that old.
Very, very old. At least I'm not on the GS though. Not yet. So it's a common one of the common questions we get is, about your travel speed, police speed. Well, no, we don't. And I ride and use my system. I have done for a decade now. Not and I see lots of apps and people sharing now, and then they say, my average speed was 120 miles an hour, and I'm going, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Why? But then you look at the probe and you go, okay, I see why you're doing it. Anyway.
Discreet veil over that one, yes. Right, okay, so last one, Northumbrian Rider. Hi both, hope you're well. I had a RealRider back in 2013. I loved the concept being in the services and it seemed like a saving grace for the biker. We were encouraged to use it as part of a blood bike group where we were given some sort of code to use it. At the time, I never really used the app. I'd heard others in the group complaining of false positives and activations from dropping devices. What has changed to make it better and how is it different to, say, Apple Watch technology or the likes of BMW SOS functions? We covered loads of that already. But
Brilliant. No, it's a really good one. So 2013, decade ago, before we did a lot.
Long time
10
ago.
years worth of. But interestingly, the 2-year pilot when we launched, and the North Examination Service said we'll do and then bear in mind the government involved and everything else is that we'll do a 2-year pilot where we'll give it to everybody and try and for brilliant because we put 10,000 users on pretty much straight away because they went out to their customers and said, look, why don't you try this? And it was very much there you go. And we started finding, false positive because it was early days. We knew how to detect. We had some elements of validation, but not the validation we have nowadays. So we had buttons to be able to cancel it. But the auto pause thing was the fundamental change because people kept forgetting to turn it off. And that's, or the they dropped the phone or whatever. There was lots of different situations that we had to then engineer around. And our validation process has just got better and better and better and better. And so in answer to the question, a massive amount has changed over the years. And even in the last 4 months, we've developed it yet again. We've pretty much engineered some of the triggering and some of the post-impact validation as well, to account for vibrations from bikes, because we've had to. Because there's been a shift in the way that people are using phones now. For hardware is dead. Let's face it. You know your TomTom hardware. It's all going to be software. So if chances are, if he signed up in 2013, he will be classed as a founder member, of which we guaranteed that they would have access to our service for life. Wow. So if he wants to get in touch with me through the usual social channels, if it's Northumbrian Blood Bikes, which I've supported quite a bit, then get in touch. I'll probably remember him, to be fair.
There you go, Steve.
Steve, you're probably entitled to continue using the service. Bearing in mind, it's changed that much that now the reason why it's the price it is that you can go from here and anywhere in Europe. You could fly to North America. If you want to go on a road trip in North America, you can use it all around the world for the same premium, which people don't realise. So a lot has changed in the last 3 years, and certainly in the last 6 months has changed massively. We are now gearing up and doing a lot more polishing and putting animations in there, because when you have to look at some of the engineering element, the engineering is the core, and then you start, hang on a minute, we need to make that button look nice. Because there's an expectation out there for people using apps now, and that's the fun bit for me, is that right now how we can make it, a little bit more sophisticated.
Fun experience. Yeah,
exactly, and that just takes time, time and resource.
That's what I'm saying to Callie is you need to make this exactly what we just said, a fun experience. Like if it can become like a bike, an all-in-one bike app, a bike social app where you can plot your route, you can track your route, you can share your route, you can. Imagine if you could do the crash detection with it. Obviously, they were working with Bosch, but that isn't working now. So, I mean, to me, it just seems. It makes
sense, doesn't it?
It just makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
we definitely need to chat. We definitely need to chat for sure. Right, Steve, Northumbrian Rider. I will leave all the links down below. Yes. Just make sure you drop Andrew or RealRider a line and get yourself back online and let us know what you think of it compared to as a founding member 2013. What do you think of it now?
It's changed massively. Like you wouldn't even recognise it.
Right, that's all the Patreon questions. There is one over on Instagram. I think after the Mossy podcast, which was 7 hours, and we covered, I think, 4 or 5 questions from Patreon and didn't get anywhere near Instagram or Facebook. People have got the arse on Instagram and Facebook, so they're not leaving questions. So the one on Instagram, John Steinthorn, how fast do you have to crash to activate it? Most of my regular offs are under 20 in giant mud-filled ruts in Norfolk. So yeah, is there a lower threshold?
Well, yeah, so auto pause works around 20 miles per hour, and it's a what you've got to think about is what we're protecting against in terms of the higher impact crashes where you're going to be potentially rendered unconscious.
Yeah,
not necessarily going to happen if you've just dropped your bike in the field.
Gotcha. Yep,
so it's a bit of science behind it's also understanding the dynamics of crashes as well. So bearing in mind, a lot of our research was crash investigators and police motorcyclists and everything else in emergency services. So the kind of threshold was a really a good one in the sense that if you think about when you come into a garage, you drop below 20, then it just was a sweet spot of a certain threshold to then pause everything.
Yeah.
If you're doing 22, for example, and somebody hit you doing 50, then the combined speed and the change in accelerometer is going to pick that up. The other thing is if someone crashes into you, then you would expect that person to then bring 999 unless someone's wiped you out. There's a myriad of different edge cases and scenarios. But what we're protecting against is when I say the higher speed crashes, my crash was, I was in fourth gear. I must have been at 40 miles an hour or something. It's not a road that you go quick on because it's quite thin. So, the higher speed crashes is the likelihood of having some kind of head injury and being knocked unconscious.
Yeah.
That's really what our technology is safeguarding against. Anything prior to that, and you've fallen off, and I was laid there days for a little bit, and it started going off, and I was like, whoa. No, but I was all right. Yes, it was days and anything else, but I didn't need help. So I think the easiest answer is that it's looking at those kind of speeds where you're potentially not going to be able to call for help. So our technology is all about, it will automatically alert the emergency services if you can't call for help. That's what we're protecting against. Yes. So if you've dropped your bike in a muddy field in wherever it was, then chances are you're not going to need our technology. But there might be an occasion where you lose control and go over a hedge or whatever, and so that's probably why we don't get a massive amount of alerts, because you're looking at that worst case scenario of not being able to call for assistance. That's my worst fear, and that's why we built the technology.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Dude, I've really enjoyed this. It's like I said to you, I've been aware of RealRider, I've been aware of the app and the brand, but I'm not actually known what it was all about, to be perfectly honest with you. So it's been you sent me a load of information to pre-read, and I didn't, because I wanted to be sort of in the dark, like most of the listeners are going to be, or viewers are going to be. And I'm really quite surprised about what I've learned and what the app actually does, to the extent that I'm thinking I want to get out there and start using it and testing it and seeing what it's like. So we need to have a chat after. For sure, because I want to start doing some content. Yeah, of course, please do. So
the one question that we didn't get round to in terms of network. So one of the, I'll be very quick on this, because this is going to happen. If you go to RealSafeTechnologies.com, you'll see there's a section in there that we've done a deal with. Basically, ACR Inc. are a big defence satellite maritime organisation that, stuff like in your whistle on your life jacket and an airplane, they do things like that, and they do avionics monitoring, and it's all using satellite. So we've done a deal with those guys to use the Iridium satellite network with a little satellite stick. And the little satellite stick is probably retails at about £270 or something, so it's not a big expense. And you'll need an airtime contract with Iridium, which I think is about £10 or £12 a month or something. But what we're going to do, and we're ready to do it, and we're just at the moment putting it into our planning. We've got agreement, we've got contracts in place, but we'll plug a piece of tech into our main technology that will basically, once you've got this stick with you, we'll use the Iridium satellite network if we can't do the normal pathway. So you're laid there in a field, you've got network connection, it will send the data the normal way. However, one of the big things is where I ride, there's no network, right? Well, what this will do is automatically utilize the Iridium and send the alert to a company called Global Rescue that manages this globally. So it's going to change our technology capability completely. So things like Dakar, things like the big rise in kind of the adventure market, off-road,
overland travel,
all of those kind of things. You'll be able to basically use our technology with this little stick, which is price of a tire, and go anywhere, knowing that if you fall off and you can't call for help, it'll do it automatically. But more importantly, we're going to have an SOS button. So if you fall off and you break down somewhere and you've got no cellular, you'll be able to use the SOS button to get assistance. And that's massive for us. And we did a big there's a press thing on our website about it. So we're just gearing up, once we've got all these other things in place, to look at plugging that in. We're hoping to get that live. I don't know if it's going to be later this year, hopefully later this year, but certainly for the new bank season. Or if we're working with one of the other big brands, we're saying we'll let them do it first. If it's a big motorcycle manufacturer, then, it's a game changer. And it's the one thing that worries me And you don't even want to talk about it because we know there's dead spots. We know the dead zones, you know what I mean? But this changes all that, completely changes it. Dead excited because it fulfills. It should have been an answer to the question about where do you see the technology in 5 or 10 years.
5 to 10 years.
Because I was thinking to myself, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But that's the game changer I'm dead excited about. So watch this space. When we meet up, I will show you the little thing, and everyone's just really excited to get going. But we need to finish some of the things that we're doing at the moment, which is all the polishing and everything else. And then we'll plug that in, and great,
So obviously there's so much of the app is free to use, but the sort of nuts and bolts of it, the crash detection side, how does that work? How much does it cost? Is it subscription basis? Is it one-off?
So if you purchase in-app, it's $3.99 a month, which works out about £47.88 a year. But bear in mind, that's global coverage. So you can travel anywhere within the territories that we cover, which is UK, Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and North America. However, if you go to your special page that we've created, that we are giving a 30% discount off of that annual fee, 30% off of the $3.99 fee over the year, and they'll be able to go to a landing page that we've created. I think I'll give you the link anyway.
You have, yeah.
And that's basically it's a nice one because we don't have to pay Apple and Google the pretty big commissions that they want just for using their system. And we use something called Stripe, which is a global payments interface.
Gotcha.
And it's like 0.8%. So we make more money that way, even though we're giving a discount.
A hefty discount.
It's
beautiful. Right, folks, so check that out down below. If you are a clan member, by the time this comes out, the audio version even, not even the video version, but I will post up on Patreon this link, so you'll already have access to that. But if you're listening to the podcast, check out the show notes. And if you're watching a video, have a look at the vid description. All the links, including that 30% discount, will all be down there. So make sure you make use of them.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Right, Andrew, I've really enjoyed this.
Pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. We need to have a quick chat because I think we need to do some content for this on the main TeapotOne channel, which has a bigger reach than this podcast. So that'd be interesting to do. But before you go, are there any shout outs you want to give? The floor is yours. Fill your boots.
I think the guys that supported us and support us that are my the RealRider team. And I mean, we've all wearing hoodies now. If you see us out and about, you'll see us in hoodies. So there's Martin, there's Andy, there's Dean, there's my son Tom, there's Scotty, there's Jamie, there's a bunch of guys that have been with us from day one pretty much and support us, and they're our test team, and they are an inspiration. And I'm not going to get all soppy. I've had a couple of beers, but they are an absolute inspiration because they keep.
I love you.
I love them all. I love them, but they are great because they bring lots of different skill sets and kind of thinking to what we're doing. And Martin keeps going on about, can I have landscape version? If he mentions that one more time, I'm going to punch him in the throat like Melissa McCarthy did. Yeah, but we are going to be doing landscape, so you can turn it on. Crikey, So, but no, they're just amazing. And my son, particularly Tom, who's done the websites and stuff, and he works for Virtue, rides a motorbike better than I can and ever will do. He's only 25, but he just every night, what we're doing about this, what we're doing about that. It's nice. It's good. It's good because if you don't have a team like that behind you, you can get kind of a little bit sort of pigeonholed in terms of what you're doing. So no, massive respect to those guys for sticking with it and seeing it now, like really give them the kind of features that they've been wanting, and for us to go out together, and it's great. We have a right laugh. So that's I mean, obviously my wife for putting up standard putting up with it. And everybody else that I haven't mentioned, sorry, but we haven't got 2 weeks.
It's like this is your life, this, isn't it?
It is. No, but thank you. Honestly, I need to come down and we need to go out for a ride, and I need to kind of really off camera share with you what the exciting things that we're involved in, because it's great.
Yeah, definitely. I'm genuinely quite excited about using the app, because I genuinely didn't know what it was all about, to be honest. Before, I wasn't aware of just what was available there, and
Yeah.
I see you've probably addressed them all, but I'm seeing loads of opportunities. There's lots of things there that
you won't have to pay for it either,
work on.
because I'll set you up with a special membership.
No, I really appreciate. We'll chat about this afterwards, but no, I'll do my bit. I'll do my bit.
That's fine.
I'm really happy that hopefully we've introduced RealRider to my community now, and that they're a good old bunch there. So folks, please at the very least try out the free bits and see what you think of them, and give your feedback. Let Andrew and the team know what you think, and what's good, what's not good, what worked for you, what didn't work for you. Let them know, because I think there really is a gap in the market for exactly what this does, especially if it teams up with somebody we all know to produce something that I think is, I say, needed in the biking community, but would certainly be of use for sure.
I agree.
But anyway,
we do listen to the feedback, and honestly, don't feel it. We listen to everything, and it's probably already hopefully been thought of. It's in the roadmap, and I think what I've seen this year is people have gone, wow, we are really throwing time at this now, and it's like, in between what we have to do as a core company, it's improving things that we're using week in, week out as well, and that's what I really like, because it's like you're creating something that you're using, and you think, well, how can we make it better? So any feedback, anybody's got any support, whether it's good or bad, I don't mind. I've got thick, broad shoulders. I'm a northerner. I can take it. We just reach out.
Definitely. I have a very healthy UK-based following. It is global, but I've got a very healthy UK-based following. Folks, don't forget, this is a UK-based app. It's designed, it's built, it is from, a bloke and his family and his friends here in the UK. So let's get behind them and help as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, there's a big software team and everything else, but
obviously.
It's not me in the bedroom doing this, Please edit that.
No worries.
No, I appreciate that. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Honestly, I really enjoyed it.
I have too, mate. I really have, and I look forward to seeing where RealRider goes into the future, and using it myself out on the bike. Right, folks, hope you've enjoyed this one. Make sure you check out all those links down below. Make sure you check out the app and give it a try yourself. All right, folks, keep doing your thing. Get on and out there whenever you can. Look after those that you love, but most importantly, live your life. Woo-ha! Dude, mega.